Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters. Welcome to another episode of Enter If You Dare. And we are really going to be on the front foot, as they say in boxing terms. We really are going to invite Zionist fanatics, white extremists, far right protesters, whatever you want to label these individuals to come on and challenge the claims that Brother YUSUF ISMAIL and myself will present. So we will be putting the link out very, very shortly. First of all, brothers and sisters, as you know, here in the UK is braced for more far-right protests across the country. And there are planned protests or far-right marches throughout the cities, even including Birmingham. As we fully aware here in the UK, Birmingham is a very much multicultural city, as we all are aware of, and they have got plans in on the 16th or the 17th of August to do some protests in Birmingham, the far right. As you know, this young lad or young child, 17-year-old child, the name has come out now. The media has had to let everybody know the name of this young individual who stabbed and killed 3 children and injured many more, and 2 adults were also harmed due to his actions. And as you know, the Muslims straight away got the brunt of all the negativity. The far right, people like Tommy Robinson, other media outlets, I don't want to mention them, started to poke the fire, pointing the finger at the Muslims and immigration, mentioning that the people who are doing the stabbing, killing children, running around with machetes. Here in the UK, we got a crazy statistic of young kids with machetes and knives and guns going around stabbing each other, fighting, listening to this kind of drill music and thinking that they are some type of gangster lifestyle. And it's not just African kids or Asian kids. These are also British, white, European kids who want to take this type of gang mentality to the streets. And as you know, brothers and sisters, that the far right have been attacking police. The images that I've seen over the last couple of days here in the UK, I've not seen anything like this before, where police officers are being bullied, basically bullied by these far right. Majority of the time, these people are drunk thugs going around setting places on fire, places of worship on fire, like the mosque in Southport was bricked and damaged, and it has to stop. And unfortunately, the Muslims are the ones who are getting blamed for everything, even though the 17-year-old was not a Muslim. He's actually a Christian, and he's a member of the local choir in the local church there in Southport. There's a lot more information slowly leaking out, so I just want to be careful in what I say. But the UK has got an epidemic when it comes to violence against women and girls. At the levels of violent crime, police have warned within this short period within this year alone, there's been 1 million such offenses against women and girls. Now think about that, brothers and sisters. This year has not even come to an end, and there's been over 1 million offenses against women and girls. Subhanallah. So, that's enough said from me, and I really want to put the mic on to Brother YUSUF, and we can kick the show off with our topic. Brother YUSUF, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam. Peace be upon you, Brother Muhammad, and peace and greetings to all out there. We wish you greetings of peace, whether you are a Zionist extremist, whether you are a white fanatical extremist, whether you are a defender of Israel. We wish you greetings of peace, and we are here to expose your falsehood, your lies, and bring you out from the depths of degradation that you are basically sinking into. I'm surprised. Actually, in fact, if you're talking about violence, I think the South African situation and context is basically even more extreme than the United Kingdom. I see violence tenfold worse on a daily basis than you can probably imagine. I don't even want to go into some of the horrific details and some of the post-mortem reports that I saw. But just coming back to this incident with Southport, so it's quite clear from what I gathered, and I didn't know it until now, I haven't read out too much about it, that the individual who stabbed was a Christian. Was he white?
No, who's African Christian?
So he was
The one
African.
who
So he was,
yes,
but he was a local Brit, right? He was a British African, local British
that's right.
African.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what had happened is that these white fanatics and white thugs and the white hooligan football culture, I mean, that's basically where the EDL and other groups come from. They decided to attack a masjid. They attacked a mosque, and they started burning mosques and areas and Muslim strongholds within the Southport area. So the attack is committed by a Christian boy who sang at a church in a choir, but these white thugs and white fanatics decide to go and attack a Muslim. So I think this is all that is endemic within white fanatical extremist culture. And I think you find the same thing. I'm in an area on the south coast here, a place called Uvongo, near Shelly Beach. It's on the further south region. It's about, I think, 200 kilometers from the city of Durban. And I'm also surrounded by white extremists, white fanatics, a lot of whom are pro-Israeli. So these whites obviously need to, taking their position because they are ignorant, they have no knowledge, they have no information, they're insular, they grow up in their racist culture. Racism is very much part and parcel of South African society. Although we've never had, although it is a racist culture, we've never had a situation whereby we feel marginalized. I mean, and I think that's probably because the fact that a lot of us here were more than 100 years in South Africa, unlike the British experience, where a lot of you come from the 60s and 70s and 80s. So we don't have I very much feel I'm part of South Africa. I don't feel that I'm out of South Africa or strange. I think probably with a foreigner who comes or an immigrant, they feel marginalized, and a lot of the third or second generation Brits still somehow or the other feel marginalized because of the situation that they're placed against by these white fanatics and these white extremists that are there. So this is basically what we're going to discuss this evening, and I want to kickstart it with a revelation that was made this week, where, as you probably know, and as we are aware of it, that on this Monday, what was Monday's date? Monday's date was the 31st of July. I think the 31st of July. 31st of July, thousands of Israelis stormed military facilities, and these are Israeli fanatics, and government buildings, to protest the detention of 10 soldiers who were accused of gang raping a Palestinian prisoner. Now, I mean, rape has always been the weapon of war that has been used by Israeli soldiers. Israelis have been known to rape Palestinian women, gang rape Palestinian women, gang rape and sexually abuse Palestinian girls, young girls. Israeli soldiers do that. They've done that for decades now. There's reports on that. But here you have one incident of a group of 10 soldiers gang raping a Palestinian prisoner, this individual here. And adding to the shock of that horrific discovery, you have a situation where Israeli media and ministers in the Knesset defended these soldiers' actions, whilst the lawyers for the accused, and I'm a lawyer, but these psychopathic lawyers for the accused rapist claim self-defense. How do you invoke self-defense when you rape someone? How do you invoke so you're acting in self-defense, this Israeli scoundrel, when you rape a Palestinian prisoner, and 10 of you, are you not sexually satisfied enough that by your own girlfriends that you have to go and rape this Palestinian prisoner, this innocent Palestinian prisoner who starved? And besides that, this event, garnered significant media attention on social media, and it's finally highlighting an issue that was basically detailed in a United Nations report. And what that United Nations report did, what it revealed, is how Israel has systematically targeted and subjected Palestinians to sexual and gender-based violence online and in person since October 7th, including through forced public nudity, making them naked. Then they strip them publicly. They sexualize, torture, and abuse. They sexually humiliate these Palestinians, and they harass them. They are, for example, women in a hijab, women who are wanting to have their modesty kept. They are stripped of their hijab, stripped naked, and they are raped by these dirty Israeli thugs. And they are then supported by these whites in Britain, these white fanatical extremists, that are some of whom have come on our show and
It's true,
abused us.
Brother Yusuf. I don't know
Yeah.
if you saw some images. I actually saw some images today where these so-called far-right thugs going around with the Union Jack flag. On the other side, they've got the flag of Israel, and they're waving it around. So there is a connection, no doubt about it. There's a connection. And brothers and sisters, I've been saying this for such a long time. Us Muslims, we need to get our act together. We need to stop running after the dunya and be more spiritually aware of the situation that is taking place. Sorry, Brother Yusuf, I just wanted to mention that because there is a connection. There is a big connection with these white thugs and the Israeli lobby, because a lot of these people are getting funded by the Israeli lobby. We got Brother Yemeni backstage. I'm going to bring Brother Yemeni on. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Yemeni.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to both of you. How are you?
You're living, Brother Yemeni, not far from London itself, and you must have heard and maybe even, actually heard with your own ears some of the thuggery that's been taking place in Westminster, the conflict between the far right and the police, and how Islam again and the Muslims are being attacked. You know, the masjids in the mosque in Southport was nearly destroyed. I would love to hear your thoughts on that, Brother Yemeni, because I know you go to Speaker's Corner a lot. I know you interact with a lot of these so-called Tommy Robinson fanboys and so forth. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, if you don't mind.
First of all, subhanAllah, you know, this is, you know, we talk about it when it happens in recent times, but we have to remember that this is not something that is new. This has happened since Islam was presented by Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So the nature of these people that are either ignorant or purposefully militant against Islam is nothing new. And they always try to find any reason to blame Muslims and Islam for the things that they do. We see this with Palestine. We see this with any conflict, that the scapegoats are the Muslims, and we do absolutely nothing. And we are always the ones that are expected to condemn, but they are never the ones that have to condemn anything. You know, we have the attacks at Southport, the police incident in Manchester, what's happening in Westminster, and other events that have happened in the last 10 years alone in the UK, right? Let alone around the world. And a lot of this stuff is not done by Muslims. And when it is done by Muslims, it is the absolute minority of the minorities. And those people we condemn without anyone telling us to. And fatwas are being produced in order to clarify that the Sharia that the non-Muslims and the bigots and the fanatics out there claim to be barbaric. And I mean, and the interesting thing is that they don't even know the origin of the word barbarian and how it was initially used. We are the first to issue the fatwas using the Sharia to condemn vigilante and terrorism that does occur from the minority of the minority among the Muslims. And then we have to ask ourselves, why are they radicalized in the first place? It is because you have done things to them. And while, we always say this, that they are not our teachers. What they do to us, we do not do to them. When we fight according to what Allah and His Messenger has said. and we stop when they stop, right? And we are quick, and we have to be quick to forgive. But if you keep coming at us, then we are harsher than you. This is the reality. And you know, obviously, Muhammad, Akhi Muhammad, you know how unapologetic I am. That regardless of anything, I speak from the perspective of Islam, the Quran, the Sunnah, and I don't shy away from it. Hence my own public threat, you know, a month ago. But even that, when I issued that public threat, it burns them till today. But the reason that we are able to speak this way, and we should be speaking this way, is to let them know that if you are going to continue to be hostile towards Muslims for whatever reason, just any chance that you want, don't expect us to turn the other cheek. We are not Christians. We are not pacifists. We do not shy away from our religion. We stand, and we stand strong. We don't want conflict. But if you choose conflict, then you have made a bad decision. But if you want peace, then the Muslims will give you the best of peace. This is the reality. And I think that, you know, and inshallah, you get a lot of guests on tonight, because this is what I want them to think about now as we continue. And I'll pass it back to you, inshallah. If you are ignorant of Islam and the Sharia and everything, and you think that Islam is, you know, a barbaric religion, a backwards religion, ask those questions. When you have those answers, then we will know your level of sincerity, whether you're ignorant or whether you're purposefully being a bigot. And we will deal with you accordingly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ensured that we have a way to deal kindly and justly with those who are just to us and kind to us. And He has given us a way to be harsh with those who are harsh to us without transgressing the limits and the bounds. So inshallah, that's my thoughts here. I'll pass it back to you, brothers.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Yemeni. We were just going to touch on the allegations, or well, not the allegations, the situation, what happened with these soldiers, these pigs.
The Jews that are less than animals.
The ones who gang rape.
The ones who gang rape. Yeah, I mean, this is the action of animals, and when they call the Palestinians human animals in an effort to wipe them out, it is the Palestinians that don't do this stuff, right? I mean, how many rape allegations have they had against Hamas and other Palestinian factions? Which one of those has actually been proven?
None. In fact, They've been disproven even by, I believe that the right wing Rupert Murdoch-controlled Times of London questioned the original report by Jeffrey Gettleman in the New York Times. So the problem you see here is if I come in, Mohammed, is that projection. Whatever Israel basically is accusing others of doing, it's now established beyond fact that they're doing. And I'm going to show you some of these images and comments where they publicly in the Knesset justify the actual rape. So with Hamas, there were these allegations, you know, and we had a program a couple of weeks ago, I think a couple of months ago, where the allegation of Gal Abdush, that report in the New York Times, and then her family came out and stated this was totally false, no forensic evidence. Then there was the Sheryl Sandberg film, also debunked, totally false. But now you have a situation where, despite them making allegations against Hamas, which hasn't been proven to date, just like the beheaded babies, rubbish and all of that, you have a situation where there's overwhelming evidence now, not allegations, evidence, and they are publicly defending these allegations. I'll give you an example. For example, the security minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, he called the accused gang rapist heroes. Whilst you have a situation where other elected officials, there's thousands of violent protesters outside the military court, and I think it's a Taman detention center. It's known locally as a so-called torture center. They are speaking out, but what the issues are in this particular case is that the situation is that these 10 soldiers, they took what they call a kind of a stick, but it was like an electrocutor. It's like one of those tasers. I had one of them some time back. It's a taser, and they inserted that stick into the rectum of this Palestinian prisoner. Yep. And they anally raped him. Now, I want to share something with you. Here is the Israeli Likud party, the minister. well, he's not a minister, he's a Likud party member, who's part of the Knesset, Hanoch Milwitsky. He's defending the raping of Palestinian prisoners. Imagine that, with a stick. If these Palestinians are accused of being Hamas fighters. And this essentially came, this was an admission that was made by him, basically at the Knesset meeting. And I want to basically just share this. I want to share this aspect with you because it's absolutely shocking, absolutely appalling, what you see that's basically happening. Here's this individual. Yeah, I'm gonna try and increase the screen. And I'm gonna share this. Let people see what this psychopath. This is guy is a modern day psychopath. What he says. Here's a video. I'm gonna share the screen here, Brother Mohammed, and I'm gonna then expand it.
We have to remember as well that this is not simply a political battle. This is an ideological and a religious one, because the reason why these Jews are protesting, and wanting these soldiers to be free is because in the Talmud, raping a non-Jew is not considered rape. It is only rape if it happens to a Jewish woman. Again, the ethnic and the ethno-religious superiority that the Jews have, which they project, and without shame. I mean, it's. I'll let you play the video, but
listen to this guy, and we will probably unpack some of those aspects within the Bible. Here we are.
אני לא יודע אם יודעים, אבל יש אירוע כרגע בשדה תימן, שמשטרה צבאית הגיעו לעצור חיילים ששמרו על מחבלי נוח'בה. והחיילים בשדה תימן, מתקן מעצר של מחבלי נוח'בה, ומשטרה צבאית שם הגיעה לעצור כמה לוחמים שם, שכנראה בגלל איזשהם טענות, של יחס למחבלי נוח'בה, ויש שם אירוע של התבצרות וכולי. הטרלול שהמדינה שלנו נכנסת אליו סביב הסיפור הזה הוא מטורף, וצריך להפסיק אותו, ואני חושב שצריך פה לתת דוגמה אישית, ואני אומר עכשיו, ואני קורא לחברי הקואליציה לעשות כמוני, אני קם, ואני יוצא מפה, ואני לא הולך להצביע יותר על שום דבר, עד שהסיפור הזה והטרלול הזה, שיש מי שבפרקליטות חושב, שאפשר לבוא ולעצור חיילים על דברים שעושים למחבלי נוח'בה, לא נגמר. אוקיי? ואני מאוד מבקש, ואני חושב שחבריי בקואליציה טוב יעשו, אם יעשו כמוני. אנחנו לא יכולים להמשיך כרגיל.
להכניס מקל לרקטום של בן אדם.
He's questioning him to insert a stick in a person's rectum. Is that legitimate? He's asking this Knesset member, the Likud party member, is it legitimate to stick a kind of a taser into a person's rectum? And look at the response.
לגיטימי?
כן, אם הוא נוח'בה, הכל לגיטימי לעשות.
אוקיי.
הכל.
מצוין.
Everything's legitimate.
זה מה שרציתי.
הכל האנשים האלה, אתה יודע מה עשו?
אוקיי.
טוב.
יש דברים שלא עושים.
So here this guy here, he's defending that. Now, the point which a lot of these individuals are also saying that, and I've seen some of these reports in the mainstream press, that look, this goes to show that Israel has taken action against these particular people. But here's another report where the Israeli reservist, Meir Ben Shatrit, who was arrested by the Israeli military police for torturing and sodomizing the Palestinian detainees, he describes his arrest as a mere sham after being released hours. He said that officers even applauded him for his actions, and they only arrested him for doing their work. So here's this guy here, and listen to this video. Listen to what he says, and see what we deal with.
You need to share the screen, the original, the old screen.
Okay. Do I share this?
Yeah, you need to get rid of the other one and then.
Okay, let me try and get this. Hold on a second. I just want to share the screen here. Where we? Let me try and share. So present, share screen. Where are we? Let's just get to this and let's see if we can share. Is it shared now? Can you see that now? Yeah. Okay, so let me just start this. I'm not going to expand this, but look at what he says about the military police.
התייחסו אלינו ממש יפה. כן? באמת, כולם, אתה רואה את התמיכה, הם עושים את העבודה שלהם כי הוא חייב להגיד לך, כנס, תעשה, אבל הרגשת את הנשמות של הבנות שם, של הקצינים, של החיילים, כולם עם יד על הלב, כאילו, אומרים לך, תודה, והם לא יכולים להגיד לך, אתה מרגיש את זה, היה יום שמחאו לנו כפיים ככה מהצד מדקיות, כאילו, מה אני אגיד לכם? אני מקווה מאוד, בעזרת השם, בעזרת המשטרה הצבאית, התייחסו אלינו ממש יפה.
So basically what he's saying, what he's essentially saying is this, is that the military police treated them with extreme respect, with kindness. There was no hostility. And essentially, what it's basically saying is that they were basically doing their job. They were essentially doing their job. The problem is that none, as it stands now, none of those Israeli soldiers that have been accused of torturing the Palestinian prisoner, sticking and putting a stick, kind of a taser into his anus, which led to that man's hospitalization, have expressed any kind of regret. And the point is that even though Israel is claiming that they are doing something very superficially, the problem is that you've got the systematic pattern of Palestinian detainees being raped after October 7th. This is happening en masse, particularly since the late November. There's been widespread cases that this is basically normalized and in many instances possibly encouraged. And so what you have is a situation is that something which is viewed as which they made the allegation against Hamas, because this is the talking point, that Hamas raped Israelis, although there hasn't been a single eyewitness report or something credible or any person that has come out to say, look, they were raped. Not a single person, not a single alleged victim has ever come out to say, look, they were raped by Hamas. Nobody has come out. There have been individuals that have made these reports. We discussed the organization called Zaka, I think in the previous stream, which is in fact run by this character called Yossi Landau. The founder of Zaka was a pedophile. He was a child rapist. And essentially, just as what the brother Yemeni stated, is that a lot of these aspects of normalization of rape as a weapon of war, you can't even justify it from a biblical point of view. I mean, you open passages in the Bible. Numbers 31 verse 17 is the first passage that comes to mind, where you have the systematic takeover. Moses allegedly commanding his soldiers, kill all the males and kill all the boys, but keep alive for yourself those girls, for yourselves. Keep alive. Now, therefore, kill all the boys and kill every woman that has not known a man that has known a man by lying with him. But those that have not known a man by having sex with him, you keep alive for yourself. In other words, you source for yourself the virgins. And quite remarkably is that when you look at the whole notion of rape as a penalty, you made the point that rape is punishable as a penalty, even within the Jewish legal system. But even from that perspective, there's a level of ambiguity. I mean, one classic example is in the book of Deuteronomy, particularly where a lot of the material and the legislation is sourced from. I think it's Deuteronomy chapter 22, if my memory serves me correct, verse 28, where you have a situation that if a man is found violating and defiling and raping a woman, and I think that there's a particular Hebrew word that is used for rape. What normally happens, in order to expiate for the crime that he has committed, he has to basically pay the rape victim's father, I think, about 50 silver, and then the woman has to be his wife. She's forced to live with him forever, not as a kind of as a peremptory obligation that he's forced to marry her. So imagine a situation in 2024 where if a woman is raped and as a penalty for the rapist, the judge or the magistrate basically makes a ruling that the rapist has to, by virtue of having raped this woman, marry this woman. I mean, look at the other side of the equation. This would be viewed as an abomination, a monstrosity of the worst kind. Yet you find something like that is viewed as inspired, finding its way within the biblical narrative. Now, I'm not here discussing the Bible this evening, but just because the brother raised the point of the Bible, that from a religious point of view, you'd find a lot of far-right extremist Jews, particularly in the state of Israel, that would justify these specific actions. And as you see, the minister that was justifying this, the Likud party member justifying this, Itmar Ben-Gvir, having absolutely no qualms about saying that, look, these individuals here are heroes. They're charged and they're accused of rape. Some of them are justifying the necessity of rape by virtue of the fact that they call them Hamas Nukba terrorists. And others are basically viewing them as essentially heroes. So there's a public defense of such actions. And the question is, where's all the mainstream media hypocrites? Where's Piers Morgan? Ask him, do you condemn what Israel does? And what they would normally frame it, they'd frame it as saying this. The problem with mainstream media is that when stories of this nature come out, they frame this as an aberration, that this is not Israeli policy, this is an aberration, and that Israel is doing something about it. When you look at the reports of the soldiers that have been essentially arrested, they're quite clear that the military police that were effecting the arrest were just doing this out of a show that something is being seen to be done. Just like the murder, the brutal murder of Hind Rajab. What was the outcome? Or, for example, even when their own people are killed. You remember in December, we had those 3 naked Israeli hostages that came naked to the Israeli soldiers, and they were shot dead in cold blood, and they stated they were going to investigate. What investigation was done? Nothing. Or their own people, the World Central Kitchen. Nothing was done, one after the other. And the World Central Kitchen, there was a lot of issues about the World Central Kitchen in terms of its bias, pro-Israeli support that its founder essentially had. It is obviously now turned. The point is that this is systematic, this is entrenched within Israeli society, and I think they need to be exposed for what they are. So what you now find is that what we've been saying for months and what a lot of others have been saying are essentially being vindicated. The fact that Israel can do what they want to, they don't care. They publicly defend their actions. And I think we need to call them out, not apologize for Hamas, not apologize by saying, do you condemn Hamas? Not apologize by saying, does Israel have the right to defend, to exist? Yes, it does. No, it doesn't have the right to exist. It ceases to have the right to exist as an entity, as a regime. No country, for that matter, has the right to exist. But Israel, particularly now, over the past 9 months, has lost its right to exist as a nation state. We shouldn't be ashamed to say this. Be bold enough to expose this. You spoke about the Union Jack, these EDL. We don't think much of the Union Jack. I mean, I'll tell you, I can get someone here who urinates on the Union Jack. Union Jack means nothing to us. It's holy. Your monarchy means nothing to us. The British royal family, the British establishment, the United States establishment means nothing to us. But somehow or the other, I find that within European establishment circles, Muslims want to take an apologetic stance. You have, for example, this comparison being made with Winston Churchill. Would you condemn Churchill for what happened, in relation to what you call not the Dresden? Churchill was a racist. Winston Churchill was a racist. I mean, he was known to have he was anti-blacks. He supported, for example, the British policy of bombing and killing Kurds. He was anti-Asiatic. I mean, this is not someone that we laud. What's so special about Churchill? These individual figureheads have been constructed as heroes by the British and the European establishment and the elitists. And somehow or the other, when they want to, produce these kind of false fallacies of equivocation, we are now supposed to be cowed down. Well, Winston Churchill bombed Dresden. You wouldn't condemn Winston Churchill for that. I'd condemn Winston Churchill for being a hardcore racist. I mean, the man's not a hero at all. I mean, look at his background. Look at his policy. We're not discussing Churchill itself. But these analogies, these fallacies of equivocation, all of this, and Muslims somehow or the other are always on the back foot when they are faced with these so-called tropes and talking points. I think it's time that we just basically, as you stated, Brother Mohammed, go into a boxing match, do bare knuckle boxing, take off the gloves completely, just engage in bare knuckle boxing and expose these repugnant, repulsive individuals for what they are, inherent evil. There's no other way to describe these sick psychopathic thugs, inherent evil. And so if anyone's out there who's a white extremist. We don't have anything
Yeah,
against white people in general, but if you're an extremist, you're a fanatic, come on this particular platform and tell us your position.
Yeah.
Well, just as you said that, we've got somebody backstage. Sorry, Brother Yemeni, a Muslim for Israel. He's put his camera on, then he's turned it off again. So I'm going to get him on, and we'll go from there. Brother Yemeni, did you want to say anything before I get him on, or?
Yeah, like just to tag on to what Brother Ismail mentioned. We simply cannot. I mean, we have to remember that the Blitz, we've all been taught, and I was taught when I was in school, that the Blitz was simply German aggression. No one in school taught us that the Blitz was actually a reaction to what Churchill did to Dresden, right? It was a counterattack. So that's the real history. But because the Allies have won the war, that is the history that has been written, right? That the Germans were wholly bad, and they were, they just decided to bomb London and other parts of the country, willy-nilly. But the issue is, they will not condemn that. I mean, this is exactly what Israel's doing now, right? Doing exactly what the Nazis did. And this is why we have to be able to be unapologetic to the point where we say that the Zionists and the Jews, to use the proper term, are worse than the Nazis.
Yeah.
Right? They are absolutely worse than the Nazis by 10-fold, 100-fold. And we have to remember the primary reason for this is because they witnessed what happens under the hands of an oppressor. And they went to a Muslim land and asked for help, asked for refuge. And when they got that refuge, they were the refugees being accepted. And the thanks that the Palestinians got was ethnic cleansing, massacres, and a genocide. All right, this makes you worse than Hitler. Okay, and Hitler's pretty bad. Okay, but this makes you worse than Hitler. And if you're
I just want to interrupt you, Brother Yemeni, just on that point. What people don't realize is that the Nazis wouldn't have got away with what they did during peacetime, and it was only during the context of the Second World War, and it was only afterwards when the so-called Holocaust began at the commencement of the Second World War, but it was only discovered much later. So during the Dresden bombing, the Brits never knew what was happening at Dachau and Auschwitz. I mean, in the 1936 Olympic Games, you had Neville Chamberlain and you had the British royal family meeting with Hitler. Yeah. And so the point is that Israel, the Nazis had a particular policy where they presented to the world, at the very least, they didn't want the world to see their atrocities. But Israel has a don't care attitude. They're engaging in open, flagrant atrocities and genocide in what could be considered peacetime. I mean, there's no theoretically World War III, although people may make the argument, but we're not in the context right now of a third world war.
No.
And then, because a lot of these, I saw the so-called Holocaust denier, David Irving, but he made the argument, which is a legitimate argument, that Hitler could have only got away, or the Nazis could only have got away what they did in the context of war. And so you never had anything that happened prior to that where they were flagrant and blatant in their particular atrocities. But Israel, on the other hand, is flagrant and blatant and are publicly pronouncing statements of genocidal intent. So you've got a situation where there are clear-cut, unapologetic statements of genocidal intent communicated by the Israeli elite, members of the Knesset, members of the military, and then you juxtapose that with the actual atrocities that are happening on the ground, where you've got these weapons of war where they defend rape. You've seen, we've lost count of the massacre after massacre after massacre in open view. In open view, I mean, there was no social media in the Second World War, and the Nazis covered up their particular crimes that they committed. Israel does not cover up their crimes. Israel doesn't cover up their crimes. They broadcast their crimes for the entire world. And so that's a distinction. So when you compare them, I would say that the modern day Israeli situation is in fact far worse. Now, I see the abusive comments that are just coming in.
Actually, what do you call it? For for once, right?
Muslim for Israel. Bring him on. Is he on? Is Muslim for Israel here? Is he here? I want to speak
No,
to
he
this
wants
guy.
I'll answer the question.
He ran away?
But
He ran away.
this guy that
He ran away.
they're all gonna run, right? They're all gonna run. But for once, have the balls to show your faces to us. Look at us. We're here. We're here. Right? Are you that cowardly? Right? That you write something up, you write something up, you copy it, you come on here, paste it quickly to run away, but you have no guts. This is why you will always lose. This is why the IDF wears diapers. All right? Because you have not got an ounce of manhood. Wallah. And I swear by Allah that none of you are worth fighting. Muslims fight men, and there are no men among you. Right? That's why you target children. And this is why I issued my threat. Because you, deep down, the things that you write in the chats and everything, this is nothing compared to what you have in your hearts. You are the very same people that applaud and wish that you were on the front lines with the IDF to kill babies and kill women and rape women. This is your true intent. This is what you really want. And you want war with the Muslims. There is no war with the Muslims. There is only annihilation by the Muslims to the disbelievers who wish aggression upon us. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us very clearly that we have treaties and we deal justly with those who are not hostile to us. We make a distinction. And you can call it terrorism. You can call it what you like. The terrorist was always the one that was being oppressed throughout history. The barbarians were always the ones that were being conquered by the Romans, because barbarian means non-Roman. That's what it means. Right? So when you guys use this language, it's to say you're not one of us, and that's why we hate you. But for us, we say Islam is for the whole of mankind. Embrace it if you will. And if you don't want to, no problem. That is your own personal choice. But have aggression against the Muslims, and by Allah will bring the wrath. And this is why
I just don't understand. I don't get the idea. I mean, we've had a Muslim pro-Israeli. You remember that, Brother Muhammad? I mean, well, at least he engaged with us. But I mean, I don't understand the point. Are you doing this ideologically? Are you doing this for purposes of show? Are you doing this because you're being paid? I mean, what sickness do you have in your heart as an individual human being, even leaving aside your Islamic identity? What deep sickness do you have in the heart that you greet us with greetings of peace, and then you send the most vulgar of comments to us on this particular chat, glad that Israel is raping those effers. They haven't even molested. So in other words, you are calling for rape. You are basically inciting rape. I don't know. I deal with rape victims daily in my profession on an individual level. When rape is used as a weapon of war, it is 10 times worse. And the fact that you can basically laugh and justify and applaud the fact that someone takes a taser and puts it in the anus of a prisoner and then electrocutes him, then physically rapes him, puts his private parts into the anus of another man and gets sexual joy out of that, and you are happy about that, what kind of sadistic human being are you? What kind of sadistic human being are you when even the UN has reported prior to this particular incident where women are stripped of the hijab, and raped by Israeli soldiers? And you've got the nerve and the audacity to lie and fabricate allegations of rape against Hamas? I mean, there's something sick, mentally sick with you as a human being, as an individual. There's no other way to describe this particular thing. And when you support it, it means that you yourself are an incarnation of evil that is being manifest before our very eyes. But you are so sick spiritually and ideologically that you can't see beyond the evil. The evil has blinded you. So the evil has blinded you. Therefore, we have to treat you in this particular fashion. Expose your falsehood, expose the rotten and corrupt worldview that you're basically coming from, and basically bring you out of that falsehood and show you the light. That's basically what these programs have been essentially doing over the past couple of months. So I just wanted to share that particular point. Do we have anyone else, Brother Muhammad? Then we can basically go.
I'm just sending.
I seen the message. But let me just, inshallah, because this is a genuine question here. when he posted. He says, Al Yemeni, may I ask, as a Salafi, do you adapt Saudi Salafi pro-Israel or Al Houthi Shia anti-Israel? First and foremost, Saudi is not pro-Israel, right? There is no evidence to support this. Okay. For those among the Muslims who say, "Oh, you're a madkhali, you're a bootlicker, and everything," you are all ignorant. When you use this sort of terminologies, it's ignorance. It's profound ignorance. And my advice to you as your Muslim brother is to go study. Right? Trade with the enemy is not prohibited. Okay, this is clear. Rasulullah traded with the Jews. Okay, even when they were fighting him and betraying the and breaking the treaties, he still traded with them. It is a choice, right, that is to be implemented. Now, of course, if it is something that is directly, and the Mashayikh have mentioned this, if you are trading with them in a way that is directly helping their military, right, then this would be prohibited, right, like selling arms and stuff like this. Indirect methods is not classed as haram by the ulama, okay? So, but boycotting is a good thing. This is a good thing, right? It's not about those people who say that, oh, trading with the enemy is permissible. Don't say boycotting is haram or you shouldn't boycott. They say it's a choice that the ruler makes. And Rasulullah made it very clear that you remain patient with the Muslim ruler. Okay, so that's the first thing. Secondly, are you with the Houthis? Right, the Houthi, the Shia. At the end of the day, Muslims have their own issues with the Shia. Okay. However, if the Shia serve a purpose in ending oppression, then by Allah we are with them on that. Okay. If Hamas and Hezbollah and any other and the Houthis, I'm from Yemen. I've witnessed what the Houthis have done to my people in Yemen. But the moment they did that blockade in the Red Sea and diverted and sunk billions of dollars worth of cargo that was going to and from Israel, I was celebrating, because this serves justice. And this is the point of a Muslim. We serve justice even if it's done by our enemies. But like I said, we have our issues. But right now, there is a larger threat than the Houthis. Okay? The Houthis have directed their attention elsewhere. So the threat in Yemen is not as big as it used to be. But make no mistake, we are not with Iran on this, right? We are not allying ourselves. The Muslims do not ally themselves with those they consider disbelievers. Now, this is not to say that all the Shia are disbelievers, but the regime is of disbelief. We do not ally ourselves with them. But where they are useful to us in ridding oppression, we utilize them. So that is the answer. And this is the stance of any educated Muslim.
I think this same guy asked the question, then he became abusive for some bizarre reason. I don't understand the point. Why ask and then start abusing us?
I don't know. It's not the same. It's someone else.
It's not the same. It's someone else.
That was yesterday. That was yesterday. Brother Yemeni, remember when we had that stream with Paperboy and Chris shared that guy was in the chat abusing. That's the same guy who came on yesterday. And I brothers and sisters, some of the stuff that he was posting in the chat, and he kept on coming on with different names. He must have come on about 12 times with different names, pasting and then running off. Yeah. And I don't want to put it on the screen because it's just disgusting. Yeah.
But this is precisely why I threaten their lives, because they need to understand something. Your life is worth less than Allah and His Messenger, right? And the thing is, they think, when I made the follow-up stream, they thought I was backtracking. I was like, no, I'm not backtracking. You are just simply too cowardly to cross the red line in which I am bound by Allah and His Messenger to punish you for what you are doing. It is your cowardice that keeps me at bay. But if you try, and the conditions are fulfilled, we are bound by, like at the end, we're not going to transgress any rights. We're not going to break laws. All right, but Allah and His Messenger comes first, and then the law of the land. Like you mentioned in the beginning with regards to the Union Jack and the King, right? King Charles in this country, right, means nothing to the Muslims. It is Allah and His Messenger. What the king or the prime minister, whatever they legislate, if it is in line with Islam, we follow it, alhamdulillah, right? But as soon as they transgress our religion and tell us to do things that is against what Allah and His Messenger have commanded, we won't follow. We will not follow. It's not like it is when they bring into the MPs into the House of Commons and get them to swear allegiance to King Charles. The Muslims will not swear allegiance to King Charles. We only ally ourselves with Allah and His Messenger, and those who are of authority among us, who legislate in accordance to Allah and His Messenger. That is our stance, and this is our stance across the world.
Yeah, I think the problem also is that the problem with the Brits, and I know both of you are Brits, is that generally they give themselves too much of importance. I mean, the monarchy is a joke. I mean, generally, I'm anti-monarchy. I mean, we've got a localized kind of monarchy in South Africa, but with the traditional leaders and so on. But it's essentially a dying institution as a monarchy per se. And I mean, the British royal family has a history of bloodshed wherever it's gone, particularly the British Empire. So I think there's too much of seriousness that British take amongst themselves. And I know there's two factions. There's those who support the monarchy, and then there's those who are the Republicans that would want to see the end of the monarchy. But I mean, the idea that someone is basically in a position of power or leadership by virtue of who had sex with who, or by virtue of bloodline, I mean, it's an outdated, debunked, old institution. And that's something that Islam doesn't, of course, cater to. So your first allegiance is to your creator. The role of Islam is to move one away from submitting to man, and you surrender and submit to the divine power will, that divine conscience, that basically the divine power of Allah. That's what you submit to. So that's what I would say on that particular. But we don't take your monarchy as a non-British. We as South Africans laugh at the monarchy. The idea that you've got a king and a queen, I mean, it's like a fairy tale fictional story for us. So it's of no significance. But I want to move on, Brother Muhammad, to the assassination and the clear murder of Ismail Haniyeh and what has basically happened. And maybe we can start off with the fact that this is not something which is new. This is what Israel has been doing for decades. Israel has got a history in terms of what it has done. Israel basically has been assassinating people for a long time, and the issue is that Ismail Haniyeh was not basically involved directly with the Al-Qassam brigades. In other words, he was not involved with the military operation. The
chain of command didn't go to him. The chain of command in terms of military operations did not reach him.
Yeah, it didn't reach him. And the irony is that he was part and parcel of the negotiation process, believe it or not, of actually getting the so-called Israeli hostages released. He was part and parcel of that. And you have a classic scenario now of someone that was not physically involved, I mean, in the actual fight against Israel, someone that was basically a partner in a potential ceasefire deal, and he's basically removed. This particular aspect just simply shows that Israel is, we talk about again and again ceasefire or a cessation of hostilities for the time being. Let me tell you something. This whole idea of a cessation of hostilities is garbage. If someone stabs you, if someone enters your house, robs you, stabs you, and says, look, he's going to give you about 5 or 10 minutes to go to the bathroom and just refresh yourself, well, what rubbish is that? What nonsense is that? So Hamas was clear at the outset that they're not looking at some sort of temporary. They want a permanent ceasefire, which would have facilitated the release of the hostages. Haniyeh was critical in those delicate negotiations. In fact, and so the issue at this point in time, the question that needs to be asked is that how can mediation succeed? You talk about mediation. You talk about the fact that Hamas is not coming to the party, whereas Hamas has been shown to be key in facilitating and wanting to release hostages. But how can mediation succeed when one party assassinates a negotiator on the other side? I mean, they're going out and assassinating someone that's not actually involved in the legitimate resistance, I may add, within Gaza at this particular point in time. And what this political murder does is that it essentially fits this troubling, disturbing pattern of satanic Israeli behavior, because a lot of political commentators, a lot of political observers have noted that whenever there has existed what can be clearly seen from the Palestinian side as a kind of a peace offensive throughout its history, when as an occupying power, as a belligerent power, whenever there's been some modicum of peace, some modicum of negotiation, Israel has had a history of targeting the so-called moderate Palestinian leaders. And by the way, I may add that Ismail Haniyeh was a moderate. I mean, from a religious point of view, let's look at it. You know, Morgan and all these scoundrels and scumbags always want to compare Hamas with ISIS. I mean, ISIS and Hamas could not be even more further ideologically apart. I mean, from an ideological point of view, one could probably, you know, compare Hamas with, for example, the Ikhwan Muslimin in Egypt. Ideologically, they are similar in many respects. But that's a side issue. But the point I'm trying to put forth is that whenever there's a potential for peace, Israel scuttles it and ensures that you are in a state of perpetual ongoing conflict that essentially, you know, leads to establishing Israel's long-term goal of establishing its totally illegal sovereignty over the entire historic Palestine. I mean, because even these areas, Tel Aviv and what is now known as proper Israel, in inverted commas, that is Palestinian land. That is Palestinian land. And so I just want to share this with you before we go on, Brother Mohammed, if I can. It's a 3-minute clip, which essentially shows the fact that whenever there's been a potential for peace, or an individual that is has a potential for creating peace and not violence, Israel engages in the assassination of this individual. So let me just share this.
Before you play that clip, I do remember this negotiator. His 3 sons were also martyred, and with his grandchildren. And we saw images on the media where he was holding his grandchildren and his children and bidding farewell to them and giving them their due rights as you know, as a Muslim. And that was very, very emotional. And now him being a negotiator who was there to make peace among the 2 groups, or the various groups, and being assassinated or murdered. I would say he's been murdered, no doubt about it, on a foreign land. I think that goes to show that the Israeli, the pigs and the dogs have got no intentions of making any type of peace or ceasefire. I just wanted to let the audience know that his 3 children also were martyred, his 3 sons, and along with his grandchildren. Subhanallah, may Allah have mercy upon all of them.
Amen. May Allah forgive them. And, you know, and the thing is as well, just because, you know, Hamas and Hezbollah and Houthis, mainly Hamas and Hezbollah, just because they are, you know, their origin is of a Shia origin, it does not mean that their fighters are necessarily Shia. Most of them are most likely Sunni, right?
Hamas is Sunni, by the way. Hezbollah is Shiite, but Hamas is Sunni.
Well, there you go. Hamas is Sunni. So, you know, at the end of the day, we still make dua for them, you know, and we ask Allah to forgive their sins, you know, and grant and accept them as the martyrs, right? Of the Ummah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Here's a list of these individuals. I just want to share.
Hamas's political bureau was assassinated in the Iranian capital, Tehran. He was killed at 2 a.m. local time in what Iran says was a targeted Israeli strike. Israel has a long history of killing or trying to kill senior Palestinian leaders. They also rarely claim responsibility for the killings, though they usually don't deny their role. Here's a look back at who some of them were. July 1972, Ghassan Kanafani. One of the most prominent Palestinian poets and authors, Kanafani was also a spokesperson for the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. He was assassinated by Mossad in Beirut, along with his 17-year-old niece, when a grenade connected to his car was set off. April 1973, Kamal Adwan. Kamal Adwan was one of the top leaders in Fatah and the PLO. He was killed during an Israeli raid on his Beirut home in an operation that was led by Ehud Barak, who later became Israel's prime minister. April 1988, Khalil al-Wazir. Khalil al-Wazir was one of the co-founders of Fatah. He was also a top aide to former PLO leader Yasser Arafat. He was shot dead by Israeli agents at his home in Tunisia. September 1997, Khalid Mish'al. This was a failed attempt on Khalid Mish'al's life, but it's worth noting. He was the political leader of Hamas at that time. Back then, Benjamin Netanyahu was also the prime minister of Israel and gave the orders to assassinate Mish'al while he was living in Jordan. He was injected with a toxic substance by Mossad agents, but they were captured. And following an intervention by then US President Bill Clinton, the Israelis supplied the antidote, which saved his life. July 2002, Salah Shehadeh. Shehadeh was a Hamas military leader and one of the founders of the Qassam Brigades during the Second Intifada, which is the military wing of Hamas. Israeli forces dropped a 1-ton bomb on his house in Gaza City, killing him and 14 civilians. March 2004, Sheikh Ahmed Yassin. Sheikh Ahmed Yassin was the founder and spiritual leader of Hamas. He formed Hamas along with a group of other leaders in 1987 during the First Intifada. He was assassinated by missiles fired by an Israeli helicopter as he was being wheeled out of morning prayers in Gaza City. April 2004, Abdelaziz al-Rantisi. Following Ahmed Yassin's killing, Abdelaziz al-Rantisi, a co-founder of Hamas, was named as their new leader in March 2004. He was killed by an Israeli helicopter missile less than a month later in Gaza. January 2010, Mahmoud al-Mabhouh. Mabhouh was the chief logistics officer for Hamas. The Israeli Mossad are widely believed to be behind his assassination, which took place in his hotel room in Dubai. January 2024.
By the way, they suffocated him to death in that hotel room. That's another.
Saleh al-Aruri. Al-Aruri was deputy chairman of Hamas's political bureau and commander of Hamas's military wing in the West Bank. He was assassinated by Israel in a targeted strike in the Lebanese capital Beirut, along with 2 commanders from the Qassam Brigades. Following Haniyeh's killing in Tehran, Iran's supreme leader has vowed revenge against Israel. There's been no immediate comment from Israel, but this assassination heightens the risk of a wider conflict in the region amid Israel's offensive on the besieged.
So essentially, I just wanted to share that to say that, look, this assassination, by the way, the very first individual, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, that was a Christian Marxist organization, was not an Islamic movement. And the point is that Israel has had this history of irrationality and killing. And I mean, reverse the situation. If anybody else were to engage in this kind of rampant, rapacious, individual targeted killings, so not just these leaders, I mean, they're killing professors, academics, medical doctors, and so on and so forth. If anybody else did that, they will be condemned in the strongest of terms. And yet you find, Brother Mohammed, one thing I want to raise, at a localized level, you have the evangelicals, the same scumbags, like the Woods and this guy, Apostasy Prophet. And I don't want to darken your channel by mentioning their names, but I've seen their channels at these traditional evangelical outfits that are on the internet, polemicists that are engaging in polemics against Islam and wanting to share, wholesome Christian values and love and so on. I'll send you some of the links to some of their recent videos justifying this particular kind of conduct. Amazingly so. Missionaries. I mean, someone like David Wood, we know the background of Wood himself. Check his recent videos where they're justifying these kind of targeted killings. These are so-called Christian missionaries. So the point is that they've lost all forms of morality, all forms of rationality. And they are part and parcel of the problem. Now you've got a situation that this murder of Hania, it's a stark reminder of the kind of the perilous nature of regional politics. If there's any danger in the Middle East, that danger doesn't come from Iran or Saudi Arabia or Qatar or any of these other countries, which I don't support, by the way. I'm not a fan of any of them. But the only danger there, the only danger causing instability and wanting to segment and strengthen its regional position in a belligerent fashion is the Israeli regime. No one else. In fact, I may add that Iran's response has been, somewhat subdued, muted. Some have complimented Iran and stated that they've had a more subdued, rational approach in the point. But I mean, I see more talk, a lot of talk coming out from Iran. No action itself.
Iran is not interested in peace.
The only real danger is this rapacious, evil state of Israel, and you got the psychopath going to Congress. This evil administration there gives him, and we discussed this, a rapacious kind of applause, standing ovation, which even their own presidents don't get. It's like a kind of, and what we spoke about last week, shirk. We saw shirk in Congress, worship, actual worship itself, not some backward rustic person worshiping stone, actual worship of an individual. This is the ultimate form of shirk that you see.
Absolutely. We got, sorry, Brother Yusuf, Wacko, slave of Allah, has been waiting. Brother Wacko,
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wacko, slave to Allah. Wacko, is that your name? Wacko. Why you call yourself Wacko?
It's just a nickname.
Is this a Muslim?
I know the brother. He always calls himself that. This is not something that has changed or mockery or anything.
Okay.
I know the brother, so he comes on my streams often, alhamdulillah.
All right.
But Akhi Muhammad, does any of these people that did these things in the back chat addressing me, are any of them still there?
Yeah, you've got that guy who, remember, he was insulting us last time. I've changed his name.
You want to bring them on? Bring him on, brother Mohammed. Bring him on.
He's gone. He ran off. He's ran off.
Of course he's run.
Porn Addict is still there. He sent it at 8:14. Don't worry, I'm going to harass Hamza's den like this later. You come on board. Come and try and harass us. Porn Addict. Bring him on, brother Mohammed. Bring him on.
He's gone.
Bring him on.
He's ran off.
We can always,
if he comes back.
Why I bring them on? Because they show and they expose the rottenness of their conduct, that they've got no actual argument. They're doing a good job for Israel. Go ahead. Come on, Porn Addict.
None of these. And this is why, the subhanAllah is like, he says he doesn't come to the corner anymore. He's scared. First and foremost, I haven't been to the corner as frequently as I used to be when I was still living in London. I don't live in London anymore. Hence why I don't go as often. Secondly, you're saying I don't come to the corner anymore, but you don't even want to show me your face. The thing is, when I come to the corner, when I come to the corner in a few weeks, inshallah, because I'm a busy man, right? I'm actually being productive, unlike the porn addicts, right?
Bring on Porn Addict. Where is he? I'm waiting for you. What do you want to tell us?
So, when I get to the corner, these same people that are gonna be in the comments and everything, they're gonna come to me face to face and they're gonna be nice. They're gonna be nice. And because the thing is, they know that I know how they think, I know how they feel.
I'm gonna bring him on, okay?
Yeah, bring him on.
No.
I hate his face. This is a coward. This is a coward, Porn Addict. No, unmute him. Let's see what he wants to say.
Don't unmute him. Let him show his face first, and then unmute him.
He won't show his face. He won't show his face. He won't show. He's a coward. He won't show his face.
My face is here.
Just unmute him for a second and see what does he want. If he wants to sway, he comes out badly. Unmute him for a second. Maybe Tonto. I don't know. Unmute him for a second, brother.
No, we don't want the swearing and stuff, because what's going to happen is
he ran off.
I see.
Because if something was said, the video might get,
Yeah, that's the problem. That is a problem. I've noticed that.
Yeah. So if it was real life, swear as much as you like. But where's your face, boy? Or should I call you an animal? You know, to be honest, calling you an animal is actually an insult to the animals. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'll call you what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls you, less than an animal. Yeah. Right? That's what you are. And that's why you don't even have a face for us to identify you with, because you are less than an animal.
You know, the thing is, it's a psychology behind. I mean, we present argumentation. We've done this for months now. And the only response you can get is abuse and vulgar behavior and vulgarity. And I mean, we had that guy coming on the last time challenging you to a fight or something. I can't remember his name, but I would have liked to have told him that to come to your dojo. I'm not in Britain, but he can come to your dojo and I'll put it up a boxing match between you, Brother Mohammed, and him. The problem is, what are you guys up to? I mean, really, what is this? What you want to? Is this your response? What is this? David Wood and AP taught me well. I'm scared to show my face. I'm not scared to show my face. Let me on. Well, we've let you on. You never showed your face. Yeah, we can't deal with
that was a different individual, which ran away before we, even let him on. The thing is here, even when we are speaking unapologetically like this, right, which is the terrorist way you're speaking, the radical way you're speaking, the anti-Semitic way of speaking, we can back everything up with knowledge. And for us, the Muslims is what? The knowledge is what for the Muslims? Qala Allah, qala Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? That is the knowledge for us. And the thing is, they know they have nothing, because even though when we speak in such a harsh manner, it is directly only to those who are who hate us. Because on all of our channels, when we come across people that want a conversation, our tone quietens down. We speak to them in a respectful way because they are respectful to us, and we don't know anything about them, so we're not going to assume bad of them. And when we have ideological and theological discussions, we do so in a way that benefits. So they can see that we have a completely different attitude between the different peoples, and that we apply that in a just way. And this burns them because they don't do that. And this is why, and this is the thing, they know that because we are upon the truth, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the author of the Quran, this is how we know what they think, what they feel, how cowardly they are. And they know that there is no contest between them and a Muslim. A Muslim's ally is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one that does not bleed, the one that needs no one, the one that is all powerful. This is our ally. Who is your ally? Flesh and blood? What makes you think you actually have something?
Yeah, you're talking about shirk and the seriousness of shirk. And finally, I would love to talk about this particular situation with the Olympics, the Paris Olympics, and how they, how the Christianity was mocked, how this so-called Islam was exactly. I agree with that, but the Muslims were the only one willing to criticize what had happened without any fear. But the Christians were silent. Where were they at Speaker's Corner? Where were you guys saying the Olympics were, ridiculing your Lord and your Savior? Where were you? So, I'd love to touch on this aspect regarding the Olympics.
Did you get to watch it, Brother Mohammed? I mean, it was
no, brother. I've not watched the Olympics. I've not watched.
No, I watched part of it, and then I just put it off. Put it off there. Yeah. The issue is not so much. You see, just to give a brief background, what essentially happened, there was, I mean, I don't know, this is a French way of doing things, and it's just, again, the level of hypocrisy. There was a kind of a modeling parade, and which was a sort of replicating what they call and again, I'm speaking from memory, the traditional Roman orgiastic festivity called Bacchanalus, which involved the god of wine called Dionysius. So this is all pagan. It's a kind of an exemplification of the pagan. I don't know if you've got those pictures, if you want to just post that, because it was on public television.
I want to post it. We've got the same guy backstage.
You had these individuals that were
kind of changed his name.
But there came a stage.
Bring him on.
I'll bring you on. Okay.
I just want to finish this point. There came a stage where the image that was shown and the video that was shown on the screen kind of exemplified the painting of Leonardo da Vinci is Last Supper. So you had Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper, and you compare the Last Supper, the actual drawing, with that of what they basically presented, and it was kind of a direct. And so you had drag queens, women, men dressed as women having dildos, and you had bearded women dancing, and their little children. By the way, their little children, girls and little boys, in that mix, and they kind of put the picture of the Last Supper there, which some Christians took offense and found that blasphemous and created a bit of an issue on that point. My point is, these Christians who took offense to that, where was the outrage during the time of the Charlie Hebdo? Obviously, there was a massacre which we don't condone, but where was the outrage when there was open blasphemy? A lot of these missionaries in Hyde Park, and I've seen Jay Smith, for example, and his wife or girlfriend Hatun, openly display those pictures of blasphemy from Charlie Hebdo, the French magazine in Paris, that basically mocked and ridiculed the Prophet Muhammad. But now all of a sudden, when you have the same French authorities that are lampooning Christian symbolism and Christian figures and Christian traditional painting, you find that some of the first people that are condemning this blasphemous depictions as being, for example, Muslims. Muslims have stood up. For example, the person who was representing Jesus was an overweight woman. Her name is Barbara Bach. The individual that was one of the disciples of Jesus was a man dressed up as a woman having a dildo. I mean, you know, dildo is a kind of a sex toy, and then wearing a beard with a long hair. Vulgar. So it's not just blasphemous, but it is vulgar. And then, of course, you've got little children there. So I'm saying that what you see there was an abomination. Then you had, for example, the depiction of Marie Antoinette, obviously the assassination, the head. But accompanied by that, the Olympic Committee chose a satanic group called Gojira. Gojira is, and I didn't know about this group, Gojira is a group that engages in French heavy metal music, the death metal. That's what they call it, death metal. Similar to this guy that was popularly known as Marilyn Manson. You know, Marilyn Manson is a heavy metal music singer in the States, but he's a member of the Church of Satan. This group, Gojira, is a satanic group, and that satanic group was chosen as one of the official songs of choice, and that group was chosen as one of the chosen groups by the International Olympic Committee. So the point is that you see flagrant depictions of Satanism that is being lauded and commemorated, all in the name of liberalism and progress. And so it was ironic when you see Christians basically only taking exception to the depiction of the Last Supper in an inverted form of way, but not looking at all the other aspects that are horrific and horrendous being presented by the International Olympic Committee. So that was the irony of the entire situation. But it just goes to show that Muslims once again have a level of consistency. When Jesus was being mocked by, you know, his companions, and we believe in the disciples of Jesus, the Quran mentions that his companions and Isa alayhi salam, but when they are depicted by drag queens and an overweight woman that is, commemorating and basically celebrating being overweight, you know, it's like a new kind of trend, then that is obviously offensive. Muslims are some of the first people that speak out against this. But ironically, when you had the mockery of Muslims by France and the Prophet Muhammad and his companions, you had missionaries in the United Kingdom, in Hyde Park, in Speaker's Corner, as part of their missionary tautology, promoting that. So when Jay Smith, for example, some years back, and I asked him directly sometime later, that why did he go out there and basically show these pictures and cartoons from Charlie Hebdo? And his point was that he wanted to show that in Western society, we basically celebrate freedom of expression, freedom of speech. Well, this is selectivity, because freedom of speech and freedom of expression is only legitimate in its original context when the oppressed are used to basically critique the establishment. When, for example, the establishment uses freedom of speech and freedom of expression against a minority community and a minority population, it becomes an instrument of abuse. So that, for me, on the Olympic opening ceremony, was a classic case of rampant hypocrisy by the Christian West or by the Western society, where they have selective offense in certain instances and not in other instances. That's just my point.
Yeah.
And I believe we had someone that was there. Zionism is muted, or Jay Saris.
I think that's actually. I think Zion.
Yeah.
Is he a Muslim?
I don't know.
I don't.
Because he's been
Zion?
quoting the Quran. So
I think.
and I think he's not.
I don't think he wants to talk.
I
He's
think
muted.
he's
If you don't want to talk, Zionism is muted. Do you not want to talk? You just want to come on or you just want to be part of the. You can listen to it on YouTube.
He's gone.
Anyone
He's
else?
ran.
Jay-
Okay, we've got the guy who's backstage right now, who's just continuously insulting.
The thing is, I said this on my stream, right, as well. These people here, they submit to Allah whether they like it or not. Over here says you can't defeat the God of Israel. We agree. The God of Israel is Allah. No one defeats Allah. Yeah. So thank you for keeping to make our point for us.
Jay
Well, he's
Saris.
on the stage now. This is your chance to say
Is
something.
his name Jay Saris? Hello, Jay Saris. How are you?
Another uneducated thing. No, it's Jehovah.
Jay Saris.
Coward. He's a coward.
Is he
He
muted
doesn't want
by
to say.
choice, or does he
Sure,
just want to
yeah,
come
but-
on and waste
Sure,
your time?
Type.
Show your face and unmute yourself, right? Well, show your face actually, right? Muhammad will. I mean, come on. I mean, your
Coward.
face.
Just a
Yeah, your
coward.
face.
He's a coward.
I mean, the
That's
thing
all it
is, you guys talk about how you're winning. By the way, you say this is why Hamas is losing. If you read the news recently, have you seen the public opinion? Right,
Hamas is
everyone,
winning.
the majority of the world is now a terrorist because the support is for Hamas. Right, it's only the bootlickers of the oppressive regime. Oh, let me get my mask. Go get your mask. Right, it'll probably be better than looking at your face. In all honesty.
But just
Let
what
me
you
get my mask.
mentioned, brother Yemeni, I want to share this with you whilst that guy gets his mask. He wants to get a
Yeah,
mask. Let him get his mask. And then wear a mask. Come on.
He probably
This is
come on
just
with a
the point.
niqab on.
Hamas is losing. Here we are, brother Muhammad. This is some time back. This is an ex-military commander. This is in March. I don't know if we discussed this before. Israel's lost war against Hamas in Gaza. Ex-military commander. This is in the report, I think, in the Middle East Monitor. Israel home front is not prepared regional. Israel has lost its war against Hamas in Gaza. A former Israeli. Have I shared the screen? Have I shared it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Israel has lost its war against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Former military commander. You can't lie to many people for a long time. Yitzhak Brick, a former ombudsman major general, said, what is happening in the Gaza Strip and against Hezbollah will blow up in our faces sooner or later. Brick said the Israeli home front is not prepared for a regional war, which will be thousands of times more difficult and serious than the war in Gaza Strip. The former military commander criticized Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi, saying he's detached from reality. He lost control, like Israel, of the ground a long time ago, but he started appointing colonels and lieutenant colonels in the likeness. So Israel basically, Hamas is there with the killing of Ismail Haniyeh and the killing of Mohammed Daif, who was in Gaza itself. It hasn't changed anything. And if there is a regional war that eventually explodes or happens, Israel will lose entirely. And this is the whole point, is that the whole argument has now fallen by the wayside in the sense that this was all about hostages. How many hostages has Israel probably killed in this bombardment using AI intelligence? How many hostages has it murdered besides killing them in cold blood, shooting them dead? How many has it killed? I mean, it's no longer about hostages. This is no longer people.
Never
people
was.
can lie to themselves, lie about human shields, lie about this war against Hamas. There is no war against Hamas, by the way. It's a war on the people of Gaza, and Hamas and other groups are forming a legitimate resistance.
No.
And in terms of international law, forget the Islamic position, which allows you to defend yourself according to Surah Nisa verse 75. But even in terms of international law, Hamas can basically defend itself. Hamas can engage in physical resistance. I may add one point that when the Hamas commanders entered Israel and the kibbutz Be'eri, a lot of their grandfathers and fathers and parents came from that particular region. It was not one country invading another country. They were simply going back to an area where they had been kicked out as refugees. Their parents, their grandparents, they lived in that area. So it wasn't a question of Britain invading Israel or Saudi Arabia invading Israel. They are not invaders. They were not invading another country. They are part of a land which is occupied illegally by Israel in terms of international law. And they were simply entering an area which was formerly where their forefathers were kicked out of illegitimately and murdered and exterminated and ethnically cleansed. So get the facts clear. Get the initial facts clear. Does Israel have the right to self-defense? No. In terms of international law, under Article 51 of the UN Charter, it clearly states, and I'm not saying this, even speak to the UN Special Rapporteur, they make the point that an occupying power cannot defend itself from the land and the area that it illegally occupies. It cannot. If Britain were to bomb Israel, then you could probably make the argument if your rotten government were to do that. But Gaza or the West Bank, this is all under Israeli occupation. So you can't say you're defending yourself against an oppressed and illegally occupied community. And even one wants to make the argument of self-defense. To what extent? To what extent does rape become self-defense? Does killing children become self-defense? Does bombing families become self-defense? Does simply killing people in cold blood? Because, you know, people made the argument, I think on the last occasion, the flour massacre, that, look, these people died in a stampede. They were running for flour and they were killed. Well, how many people that are running for food, starving people, running for food, how many of them get killed by having bullet wounds to their head? How many people die in a stampede that have bullet wounds to their head? It's quite clear they were murdered. They were shot dead by Israeli snipers and Israeli soldiers. Is that your self-defense? I mean, this is when you murder Hind Rajab, the baby in the car, calling the emergency. Is that self-defense? When you murder your own people, is that self-defense? When you murder the convoy, one convoy, you murder it, it gives you the coordinates. Second convoy, 20 minutes later, it gives the coordinates, you murder them. Third convoy, another 20 minutes later, you murder them. I mean, you've got no argument. There's no damn argument you have. And you come on this platform, and when you don't have an argument, you have the audacity to throw your toys out of the court and start abusing us like little children.
They don't even have the audacity. They don't even have the audacity to do that because they don't want to do it, right? They copy, paste, right? Put it in. And by the way, a lot of these comments are not original. It's just like, it's almost like they have an archive of, okay, I'm going to copy this one and paste it, right? They don't even have the audacity to do that. If they did, they'll come on stream, show their faces and say it to our faces, right? They will never do that. Now, the thing is, you know, the Jews, they know that they are actually under siege, right? This is why they have their walls built. They are surrounded by the Muslims in every direction. They are the ones that are under siege. It is only a matter of time before the Muslims actually unite and strike. Now, the other thing is that I do want to mention, which is very important, regarding protests and flags and nationality. I'm saying this is to the Muslims now, right? We will never be able to fight oppression as long as we are like this. Remember the days, right, when the Khalifa, the Ottoman Empire, right? Do you guys ever remember seeing a Yemeni flag when under the Ottoman Empire? Or a Turkish flag under the Ottoman Empire? Or an Egyptian flag under the Khalifa, or an Iraqi flag under the, you know, in these places that they've conquered? No, there was only one flag that was flown, the flag of Islam, right? If we are going to if we continue with protests, remember, protests is not a thing of Islam, right? We act on oppression, right? We act to defeat oppression, right? Now, if you know, when Rasulullah mentions that if you can't do it with your hands, you do it with your mouth, right? And if you can't do that, hate it in your heart. This does not mean protest, right? By speaking, you speak up, but not in the form of protests, right? This is not the way it's done. It is not part of Islam, and this is something that they do, right? And it doesn't change anything, right? Not in any meaningful way. But the flag of Islam is what needs to be raised. So when you are on social media, and you have your watermelons and your Palestinian flags, make the effort to start bringing the flag of Islam. because that is what is feared by the oppressors, not the Palestinian flag. All right. Muhammad put a poll at the beginning of the stream saying, is Islam a threat to the West? I voted yes, but not in the way that these people think it is, right? Islam is a threat to the West is because our, human rights is not something we subscribe to, the Muslims. It's not so, because it's contradictory to Islam and it's selective of who has these rights, all right? It's not applied. So the Islam and the human rights that Islam has, this is what is dangerous to them, because then they understand that what we're actually going to do is eradicate their evil if it prevails and establish Tawheed, and establish good behavior with one another, Muslim and non-Muslim, right? That the empire that we had from the 7th century till the 20th century, right, being carried through by the Ottomans, and the equality and the good behavior and good conduct that we had with the Jews who have been treacherous to us throughout the centuries, that will continue, and that we will protect them in Palestine, right? Yes, as YUSUF said, the destruction of Israel must happen, and it will happen. But does that mean to kick everyone out? No, right? This is not what Islam is. For those Jews who have bought the houses rightfully in Palestine, they remain. But those who have driven Palestinians out of their homes, they will be driven out into the lands and back to Europe. Back to the Europeans who have been slaughtering them for the 1400 years that we've been protecting them. So
I just want to make one point, Brother Muhammad. They describe themselves, and this is their hypocrisy, as the only democracy in the Middle East. Well, let's take it to its finality.
Yeah.
Even on their standards, on their rotten standards, if they were to implement what they claim to be democracy, it'll be that they will not allow it, because they will never give any Palestinian on the West Bank or the Gaza Strip the vote. I mean, if you want to claim to be a democracy, well then, okay, let's get rid of these artificial constructs, call it Gaza Strip and West Bank. Let's assume Israelis can go there and the Knesset is disbanded. Call for a government of national unity. Go to the polls. Allow everybody on the West Bank, everybody on the Gaza Strip to vote. Every man has a single vote. Israelis, if they want to go to West Bank and build houses, go there. But Palestinians from Gaza going to Tel Aviv, you can purchase houses there. You can settle in Tel Aviv, settle in Hebron, settle Israel. They'll never allow it. They will never allow it. So it's a lip service to this hypocritical ideology called democracy, because it's not even really democracy from their own standards. And I think the point is that even if you apply their own standards that they claim to uphold, they fall short on that particular level.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there is no such thing as democracy. In fact, if anything, Islam is not a democratic system, but it's more democratic than they are, right? Subhanallah. And the thing is, and this is what I'm saying, like the point I want the people to understand is, La ilaha illallah. There is no more powerful statement than that, right? It guides those who are sincere and casts terror into the hearts of those who have evil in their hearts. Only the evil feel fear with La ilaha illallah, right? Because they don't want it. They are following the footsteps of the shaitan. And when you say La ilaha illallah, and when you constantly remind yourself of Allah, the shaitan gets smaller and smaller until he's the size of a fly. This is an authentic hadith, right? But when you sin and you have a lot of evil and everything, he becomes bigger and bigger until he's the size of the mountain, right? So this is, and they hate it because they understand that who they follow, shaitan, is the one that's being defeated. And that's why when this guy came on and he was like, oh, it's actually Jehovah. Jehovah's a pagan god. You don't know anything about your biblical theology. Yahweh is a pagan god when it's studied. All right. This is what you understand. This is what you see. All right. And we've talked about this, me and Paperboy, regarding theophoric names. And I've even put that to him. Where is Yahweh in the names? You never have this. Theophoric names must mean that the entirety of the name is there, right? Like we can't say Abdul Rah and say, oh, that's the name of Allah in the person. No, it has to be Abdul Rahman, right? It can't be cut off halfway and you're like, well, there's the name of God, right? So all you follow is idolatry and evil. And our message to you, even on this stream, it is our duty to call you to Islam, right? To ask you to let go of the oppressive and hateful feelings that you have for Islam for no other reason than you are either ignorant or you have been fooled by the bigots and become a bigot yourself, right? We ask you to look at Islam for what it is, okay? To study the Quran, to ask us the questions, but you also have a choice to continue to be a sheep, right? You can take the comments that we make to be insulting and degrading and the true message of Islam, you know, and it is the true message of Islam to those who have hostility in their hearts and evil in their hearts.
I just want to mention, sorry, brother Yemeni, I'm going to let you carry on, and I do apologize because, you know, Christianity, and Assalamu alaikum to brother Rikan all the way from the USA. Nice to have you on the brother. You look fantastic. I just want to explain that racism is well rooted in Christianity, and that came to pass from the stream yesterday, where one of the disciples was called the N-word within the Bible. I don't know if you know that, brother Yemeni and brother Rikan. The word the N-word is actually in the Bible, and Sister Hindsight was silenced because she didn't know it existed. And I want to just show you something quickly.
But it's not even that. It's not even that. I mean, Jesus is apparently racist as well in the Bible.
Yeah. I love this. I love this thing, and I love this comment. I am racist only to Muslims. You do realize Muslim is not a race, right? it's Allah, the clowns just keep coming.
So as you can see here in the Bible, it says here he was called nigger, and I'm sorry for saying it. It's actually in the Bible. Simon, translated, means black man. And let me scroll down. In all the versions of the Bible, Simeon is called nigger, and if you keep going down, the translation of that is called the black man in the New Living Translation. So the N-word originates from the Bible. And how any Afro-American or any African can accept the Bible as a word of God, brothers and sisters, there is something going on fundamentally wrong. And I just wanted to share that with you. And I didn't know if you knew about this, but I was shocked, subhanAllah. But yeah, brother Yemeni, sorry for cutting you up, and brother Rikan, feel free to share your thoughts.
Well, I mean, you see it as the progressing of the Gospels. It goes from the anti-Semitism just keeps rising to different extremes, where even the Bible says that the Romans, who are pagan worshippers, are somehow they're more righteous than a Jew. At the same time, Jesus supposedly is quoted saying that, the Pharisees are the standard. They're, the seat on the right hand of Moses. It's always a contradiction. It's the elevation of the Romans, the pagans, over everything else on there. I mean, you got Paul saying that the slaves should adhere to their master because apparently that was God's plan. It's like, what? How is this even remotely, God's word? Jesus calling a woman a dog, just straight up racism. The Gentile, it's a word that was used for Gentiles, but apparently it's fueled completely, and that is the same things they use to. What did they do from in the conception? They persecuted the Jews. They wanted to exterminate them. I mean, don't like to say it, but the Nazis quoted the Bible to what they were doing. Why? Because the Bible is fueled completely by racism, anti-Semitism. I mean, it all of it. The so-called New Testament. That's all it is. It's a twisting of words for, it looks like an agenda, and it's elevating the Roman Empire, one of the worst empires when it comes to paganism or anything that's ever been in existence. And from that, Christianity was birthed. It's just remarkable that this is what they see as supposedly the truth, and historically, it just doesn't make any sense for me. It didn't growing up. The more I read, the more it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, just by reading it, if you look into it, and the reason why, the easiest way why they do it is because Christians don't read. Christians absolutely will never go back and try to read the Old Testament in the Hebrew. Absolutely not. Nope, because you got the King James version was the one that got inspired by God to, and it's the gold standard, even though it's seen as the worst translation ever. You know, they use the Pentateuch, or whatever, the Greek translation of the Torah, which even the Jews were like, first of all, it's only supposed to be the 5 books, not the rest, and it's wrong, and they don't use it because it's a twisting and making it more socially acceptable. And they took that and they just kept on doing it, becoming their own scripture, making it more socially acceptable to whatever agenda they want. Everything about Christianity is just doesn't make any sense. And now it's just become this affirmation of nationalism, which somehow that has to do with the Bible. They all become nationalists. There's no unity at all, and now they follow. Now, pretty much Israel is just taking care. It's just pretty much running the country, the U.S. A foreign leader speaking in Congress, and the way that's unheard of. I mean, the forefathers will be rolling in their graves now, and they're like, "What is this? What are you doing in our Congress? I need you to go back. This is our Congress, not yours." I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And even that, it's
Did you see the amount of clapping? This is what Brother YUSUF was saying.
Yeah,
how long they clapped for this shaitan was, I've never seen anything like that before.
It's a secular leadership. They don't believe in God. They absolutely do not believe in the Torah at all. I mean, it's an atheist, and they're following and they're clapping to an atheist who doesn't believe in the Torah, who doesn't believe in prophets, who doesn't believe in the prophets, and somehow it's still the country of God. What? Does that make any sense to anybody? He's an atheist. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in the prophets. They don't believe in their own law. What are Christians doing? I'm like, they don't believe in your Bible. They believe in it less than we do. And they're applauding him. It's just insanity in a completely different level.
Subhanallah. Brother Yemeni, this chap keeps on coming on, changing his name. Do you want to, you've got opportunity to say something?
Oh, he has an opportunity to show his face and speak. Oh, well, look at that.
He's gone.
Oh,
coward. What a coward. Just like his father, David Wood. Cowards. That's all they are, cowards.
So yeah, they're never ever gonna show their faces. Allah. And they keep challenging.
He challenged you. He keeps on challenging you to a fight. He challenged me to a fight. I'm like, mate, if you want to go for a fight, I'm happy to do that. I'll smash you, mate. I'll smash you.
There wouldn't be a fight. There will never be a fight.
If you want, I'll still smash all 4 of you.
The thing is, there will never be a fight with these people, right? Because as soon as they stand in front of you, they're weak at the knees. Because they know where your strength actually lies. You will punch them over, even if they punch you over and over and over again. They know that this is how you actually feel. So if I get hit, right, over and over again, I know that every single time I get hit, it's only because Allah willed it, and it's to absolve me of my sin. That the pain I'm feeling, it's rewards for me. But I will not be beaten down. If anything, once he's tired, all it's going to do is tire him and benefit me. And then when he's tired and weak at the knees, fight's over. Won't even need to touch him.
Yeah, in the private chat, he just constantly wrote that he wants to, he wants to fight us and stuff like that. Sign the contract, mate. Just email me send me a contract. I'll fight you.
No. See, the thing is, for me, there is no contract between me and a coward. What contract is there between a man and a boy? Huh? You want to sign a contract, but you don't want to sign is show your face. I mean, this is why the stream is titled what it is. Fanatics, white extremists, Zionists. This is what you are. Yeah. A waste of air, an oxygen thief, a gutless roach.
And where are the Christians when they're bombing the churches? They're killing Christians. There's a priests are like, "Yo, we're here. Can anybody?" I mean, they're saying, "Hey, we're not the only one. We're not the only ones being bombed. Hello, we're here. Our church was destroyed. I mean, we got people that come to the church. They're Christians also dying. They're dying of thirst, dying of hunger. And I'm like, what about us then? We're not Muslim. We're Christians. What's and they're just completely they just go like this, going.
So, Recon, how is the Christian churches in America dealing with the opening ceremony of the Olympics? Was there much media about?
I have my parents are Christians. They go to Christian church on it. Nobody's talking about it. It's nope. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. I've asked my brother. They just that thing. It's the thing. I think they're almost like giving up. It's like they already know the flags are on the churches. Their pastors are all coming out with every pronoun on there. I mean, they've already lost. They're just kind of like throwing up their hands and going, well, I guess we're all going to hell in a handbasket. That's it. They're just giving up. Most people are taking all the church from online. They don't go to church anymore. They just look for their favorite quote YouTuber. I mean, alhamdulillah, I just came back from Yuma. It was great. We prayed together. It was a packed, like always, it was packed full of people on there. But no, they're taking the stuff online. They're just like whatever YouTuber they like. They see a little bit on it and then they continue on. They don't want to go to the church anymore. They don't even know what they're going to get there. It's pastors are leaving to go to YouTube because they every single pastor in there has their own view on there. They don't know. It's becoming spectacle. It's become entertainment. Half of them are so discouraged they don't want to go back. They're quitting. That's what's happening. That's what's really happening. The only packed churches are the churches which are just an abomination. It's an entertainment. They read one verse, if that, and the whole thing is just a charade of things that you're like, what is this? And then they ask for money. And those places are still packed because they don't teach anything. Some churches are beginning to teach necromancy. Some churches are all completely modalist now. They're completely okay with. They're modalist. Some of them are especially saying there is no Trinity, or they're teaching that there are gods, they are themselves are gods as well. This is what Christianity. They don't mention that. They don't talk about that. They don't say it. But yes, that's what's actually happened with Christianity, at least in the U.S. And it's just insanity.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that has happened to Christianity. I mean, the earliest apologia is to tell the pagans, why do you reject us when we believe what you believe? Just a different person, right? That's essentially their apologia. That's their earliest documented apologia. So, it's a sad state, but I always try to. What I want to do is also bring it back to the idea that this stream is addressing a particular group of people, and this is a minority of the people, right? Especially among the Christians, right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran that the Christians are closer to us, right? The vast majority of them are not hostile, and we don't see that this minority, like the ones that we have in the chat, are representing the large majority of Christians, regardless of denomination. The Jews, however, most of them are just hostile, right? This is known by us and the Christians. It's written in the Bible that they are the killers and the beliers of the prophets, and this is known in Islam as well. So we know that with regards to the Jews, this is the majority of them, including rabbis. Okay, what I've noticed as well is with these rabbis, even the pro-Palestinian rabbis, I've noticed while watching them and studying them is that when they speak about the oppression, they speak about the oppression to the Jews in Palestine. And then at the end, right at the end, they mention the oppression to the Palestinians. Why? And this is a tactic, because you tend to remember the last thing that is said in a conversation. So when they end by mentioning the Palestinians and the Muslims that get oppressed, that's what sticks with you. And you forget that the vast majority of their speech is regarding the oppression to the Jews that suffered under Zionism, right? The Jews and the Christians are not our allies in any shape, way, or form. And we should never, right? This culture that Muslims have, that when a non-Muslim does something good, they suddenly make him president, right? They suddenly make him a role model. I mean, how disconnected are you from your Iman, right? Of course, I'm not takfiring anyone, of course. But how weak is your Iman that when a non-Muslim does something, well, hey, and you build a pedestal for them and you take them as role models, and the vast majority of them let you down. They are not your allies. They never will be. Because at the end of the day, they always talk about, let's build bridges. Let's build bridges, yeah? But what is their bridge about? Allowing oppression to continue, to have you stray from Tawheed, to accept the things that you should never accept. That is the bridge. But for us, the bridge is very clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to us in the Quran, O people of the book, come to a common term between us and you, that we worship none except Allah, and we do not associate any partners with him. That's the bridge that connects us and mankind.
I just want to add to that, Brother Monk. Sorry, I had some emergency to deal with, but
no problem.
Dealing with Christians, even though the Quran says, وَلَتَجِدَنَّ أَقْرَبَهُمْ مَوَدَّةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ النَّصَارَى ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ مِنْهُمْ قِسِّسِينَ وَرُهْبَانًا وَأَنَّهُمْ لَا يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ, that you will find them nearest to you are those who claim we are Christians, men who are devoted to learning, people who have renounced the world, and more importantly, they are not arrogant. And of course, those strongest in enmity to you will you find Jews. But I want to take it further, that in the modern context, and I'm talking about 2024, you find that amongst Christians, particularly those who are engaged in anti-Muslim polemic, those who are engaged in evangelical activity, American evangelicals more particularly have been, not just recently, but for decades now, fully supportive of the state of Israel, particularly as an ideological driving point. And that support is not just driven by a theology that compels them to love the Holy Land, but it also has certain particular political implications for their particular perspective. I mean, from their idea, their support of Israel, and this basically goes, and I want to basically share a new party that Trump was said to be, but this essentially goes that the support for Israel by Christians, and I'm saying evangelical Christians, and particularly those type of Christians engaged in anti-Muslim polemics, is that it's resulting in a supposed end time. So you're going to have a situation that Jesus returns to earth, a violent Jesus, I may add. You talk about this lovely, peace-loving Jesus. I may add to you in a debate I did some years back, I think it may have been with Dr. James White, he stated, and he was quite candid before an Anglican audience, because we had a debate in an Anglican church, and he told the audience, which upset them, the Christian audience, that this idea of a loving Jesus is a bit of a myth that Christians should get rid of. This mealy-mouthed Messiah who just is subdued and kind and loving is not the actual portrait of Christ in the original sense, and particularly in the end times. And the end times is that when he comes to earth, there's going to be this final battle of Armageddon, most of you would know it, and Jesus will be ruling the world from the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. That's this mad case apocalyptic scenario. And in that scenario, in that idea leading up to that, war is not something to be avoided, but something that is essentially inevitable, something that is desired by God, something that they should basically celebrate. So what happens to the Jews and the Palestinians from the Christian point of view, or from the Christian evangelical point of view, is, to put it very mildly, collateral damage. So all those Christian Zionists that are now, and Trump has a large support base from them, they're anticipating and hoping for a war, a massive war, to end all kinds of war. And so that eventual resulting Christian world that they claim will vanquish evil and bring peace, but in order to lead to that, you have to have a situation where large numbers of people are killed and massacred. And therefore you have these individuals, these sycophantic individuals, women, and anti-abortion activists. And I see Dr. Phil has, for example, even joined that particular brigade, by the way. But these anti-abortionists that will go and stringently condemn people who engage in abortion, even in the earlier stages, and fanatically so, for example, when women who are experiencing dangers in health or any of that kind, they are stringent and fanatical in that anti-abortion stance, and on other issues, pro-life, so to speak. When it comes to Palestinian babies being blown up and drawn out, there's not a whimper, not even a condemnation. This is a reality of war. It's the inevitability of war. This is what normally happens. This kind of garbage, this kind of particular rubbish that is there. And I may add that this grouping, this evangelical group, similar to what you've got AIPAC, the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, but this evangelical group is strong and powerful in its support of Trump. And I don't know if we've got anyone here, but Brother Mohammed, I wanted to share this that was shown on the fantastic program by Amy Goodman, Democracy Now!, which is a secret organization in the United States, which Trump basically addressed, and he went to at its particular meeting. It's called Ziklag Exposed. This is a secret Christian nationalist network that is calling for an Armageddon, that is fanatically in support of the state of Israel. I just want you to see this for about a minute or two, if I can share the screen with you, and then we can share this platform, and if anyone else can come on board, they can enter. This is a screen that I want to share with you. It's from Democracy Now! By Amy Goodman. This organization called Ziklag, this is a secret Christian nationalist organization in the States that is prominent in its support of Trump, and Trump basically addressed. Here's it here. Let me just share the screen and expand this. If the screen is there, here we are. Let's expand this and play this for a few minutes.
I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump made headlines this week after suggesting that this year's election could be the last U.S. election if he wins in November. Trump made the comment Friday in Florida at Turning Point Action's Believers Summit.
Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have to vote.
For more on who's backing Trump's efforts, we look at a secret organization of wealthy Christians who are working to purge more than 1 million voters from the rolls in battleground states and mobilize Republican voters to back Trump. It's called Ziklag. The news outlets ProPublica and Documented obtained thousands of Ziklag's internal files and found the group has divided its 2024 activities into 3 different operations: Steeplechase, which uses churches to get out the vote, and Watchtower, which aims to rally voters around opposition to transgender rights. The third operation, called Checkmate, focused on funding so-called election integrity groups as laid out in this Ziklag member strategy video.
Voter irregularities are rampant across all 50 states, but especially pronounced in the battleground states. Public polling confirms Americans have lost confidence in electoral integrity. With the federal election already in full swing, more must be done to ensure fair elections in the most important republic in the world. That's the purpose behind Operation Checkmate and its practical approaches to both get out the vote and clean electoral rolls through our coalition partners. Through these efforts, we have the opportunity to play a significant role in the upcoming election.
ProPublica reports Zikлаг's mission is to take dominion over 7 spheres of public life, which it calls mountains: business, science and technology, family, arts and media, church, education, and government. For more, we continue with Andy Kroll, investigative.
So this is it. Ziklag's mission is to fuel cultural transformation for the kingdom. We strategically pinpointed 3 key arenas that intersect multiple mountain establishing them as the battlegrounds of our culture. And I mean, you've got guys like, Christian hardcore Zionists for a number of years, Hagee and all of them. The point I wanted to share is that this is now a powerful front. And the reason why, may I add also that a lot of Israelis and Israeli businesses fund organizations like this. So you, for example, would have even pro-Jewish organizations and lobbying groups like AIPAC and other organizations like the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, contradiction in terms, supportive of this by virtue of the fact that it is pro-Israeli, pro-establishment, and in fact calling out for open war. And you can see his speech. I mean, Trump is a loose cannon himself. I mean, he's a narcissistic, manipulative liar. I mean, he's there for himself. It's quite clear. He's part of the establishment, but he's part of his own establishment. So he's not part of the establishment that, from the Clinton and the Bush administration, that was a different establishment. He's more of a loose cannon. But the point is that he gets support where he can, at all costs whatsoever. And this is just one classic example of an organization and of Christian evangelicals taking a far more muscular approach in politics, in the political establishment, and particularly in fomenting its continuous support of the state of Israel. And as you can see, it becomes a necessity. The genocide that you see, that we've been talking about for months, becomes the very necessity for the existence of these particular movements, because it heralds the eventual kingdom of God and the bloody Jesus coming down and slaughtering his enemies before him. Just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I think it's almost like in the U.S., right, that becomes such a joke when it comes to elections now. The choices of who to elect, I mean, they're both pro-Israel anyways. There's no such thing as a non-pro-Israel. But
No,
you don't get
not.
that anyways. So the choices are either you want, it's all like crazy. It's all like, which crazy do you like the best? Or are you okay with kids being, you're not, getting things chopped off of them or not? I think that's pretty much the only option they got left on there. Now it's like, which one?
No, but I think the point, brother, is that people assume that, of course, they call Joe Biden Genocide Joe. But I mean, the alternative is not any better. In fact, it's even more worse. The thing is, the Democrats, although they've done a bad job, but they try and do the support more clandestinely, and to create the idea that there's a social awareness of justice and peace and all of that, whereas the Republicans are far more blatant in terms of it. But it's the same policy. The policy is essentially the same. As Galloway would say, both parties are just different sides of the same coin, or different cheeks of the very same bloody backside, like you've gotten, the Labour and the Democrats. Starmer as a classic example, not much different from him and the other Indian guy, Sunak, in terms of its policy towards the state of Israel and oppression in any part of the world for that particular matter. There's no sense of morality, no sense of justice, no sense of sincerity. And so as Muslims, I don't think we can, in fact, even take sides with any of these parties here.
No.
This is the whole issue. Yeah.
The thing is, both Trump, well, I mean, we assume Trump is most likely going to, be president, but whoever the next president is, right? And Starmer, they are not going to have a very good, run at leading their countries when it comes to foreign policy. What has happened on October the 7th was the powder keg to the end of Western, ideology and democracy.
Yeah.
And that's what they're going to run into. They're going to still try and push that narrative, but they're fighting a battle that has already finished and that has already been lost by the West.
Yeah, well, we've seen the West.
Brother Hassan.
Their power and their influence. That's also
Wa alaikum
diminished.
salam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Sorry, Brother Rico.
I
Hassan,
apologize for leaving earlier. My battery kind of died.
Yeah, not a problem. Hassan, anything that you want to share, feel free to speak freely, brother.
Yes, thank you. With regards to the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, and how it happened, to be quite honest, people obviously this is a very sad and tragic event that has taken place, but this was expected. In my view, this was expected, because for the lack of, I suppose, a better way to put it, he was a leader. Whether you liked him or not, whether you agree with him or not, he was a leader, and the state of Israel did not want a proper leader in Palestine. Ismail Haniyeh was, in my view, that leader that they needed to take out, and they did. But what perhaps could be possibly the ripple effect of this assassination is a now perhaps invigorated and angry people in Palestine who will, in all likelihood, now react in a much more different way. Allahu Alam. But I think that could be a possibility going forward.
Yeah, and can I also add something, Brother Mohammed?
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Oh, by the way, might I just say you have a glorious beard. You're the mashallah. Allah blessed you with a glorious beard.
Alhamdulillah. Good genetics.
Alhamdulillah. Hey, but I just want to point out this incredible hypocrisy and double standards of the West. So when Russia, they invade Ukraine, all of a sudden everyone condemns Russia. But when Israel does the same thing to Palestine, everyone condemns Palestine for fighting back. Hypocrisy, double standards.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about the Russia-Ukraine war is that it got the West to come out and say, we defend Ukraine because they are like us, and that it couldn't have been more explicit.
I mean, look at the death toll in Ukraine in terms of Ukrainian children. I mean, the Ukrainian children, the Ukraine war started about, I think, when was it? It was probably about 2 or 3 years ago, going on to, was it 2020? I just look at the time period before 2022, sometime in 2022, beginning of 2022, according to UNICEF, and that's as late as May 2024. The number of children that have been killed as a result of the Ukraine war, the number of children killed or injured, so they don't give the figures, are approximately 2,000. Only 2,000. Now, I'm not saying that to discount the fact that they've been killed, but contrast the uproar for the death of 2,000, I think about probably 10,000 adult civilians over a period of about 3 years. Contrast that with now, according to conservative figures, 40,000, but probably more precisely, as many medics have suggested, 100,000 possible Palestinians murdered under the rubble. Contrast that and contrast the outrage. And like I said, the hypocrisy at the Olympic Games. I mean, my country, South Africa, was banned from entering the Olympic Games from 1964. And I can tell you something, as brutal and as belligerent as the white regime was in South Africa, nowhere and they were Bantustans. They were Bantustans, what we'd call the equivalents of Gaza, in places like Transkei and in the Eastern Cape, not too far from us. And they had these so-called puppet black leaders. So much for the so-called argument that, the Arabs, in Arab politicians in the Knesset. But they had these puppet black rulers in these Bantustans. But never did you have a situation where the South African apartheid government would go and, for example, bomb Soweto. Even in the Soweto riots of 1976, if you're familiar with South African history. Or for that particular matter, they would go and carpet bomb an entire township that comprised of blacks. And may I add also that during the heights of apartheid, you also had black magistrates. I don't know whether you have magistrates in the United Kingdom, but you had black magistrates and black police officers as well operating during the apartheid regime. So this argument that is being presented by Israeli apologists, we have Arab judges or Israeli Arabs that are probably part of the IDF and so on. It's a feckless argument, a weak argument, it's a ludicrous argument. But the point is, I'm trying to say, contrast the fact that South Africa, which was an apartheid system, apartheid regime, nowhere near its atrocities in terms of Israel, was banned from 1964. The very first time we entered the Olympic Games was 1992. And Israel, on the other hand, Ukraine, Russia and Belarus has now been banned from the Olympic Games by virtue of the attacks on Ukraine and the invasion of Ukraine. Far lesser people have died. They have been banned. But the Israeli regime, nothing is done in relation to them. They've got full swing. Those Russian athletes that are participating now in the Olympic Games are participating as independent athletes. Israel and Israeli athletes are participating under their own flag. So again, it's the duplicitous double standard, the moral, the immorality of Western society. And you see this writ large and manifest large. No longer can they speak to us about human rights, teach us about human rights, teach us about values, or the right to justice for that particular matter. There's just this article I saw, Brother Mohammed, that I wanted to share with you. This is basically, and why I'm quoting the New York Times, not that the New York Times is honest, but for many of these pro-Israeli puppets out there, whenever you point out something to them from Western media, for some reason or the other, it kind of registers better with them than if I'm quoting from Al Jazeera or any of these other sources, which are far more legitimate sources in any event. But I mean, this basically deals with the issue of Ismail Haniyeh. Apparently, according to the New York Times, there was an explosive device that had been smuggled into the Tehran guest house where he was staying. According to 7 Middle Eastern officials, including 2 Iranians and an American official, the bomb had been hidden approximately 2 months ago in the guest house, according to 5 Middle Eastern officials. The guest house is run and protected by the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps and is part of a large compound. Mr. Haniyeh was. Our question is, I don't know how authentic this is, but how would they know that Haniyeh would be staying in this particular hotel if they had planned his assassination 5 months ago? And I think when we asked Norman Finkelstein a couple of months back about the similar report by the New York Times, where Israel was apparently said to have had the information and the knowledge and the plan of Hamas in terms of what was going to happen on October 7th, a year before, creating a kind of a conspiratorial theory in terms of Israel allowing what Hamas did to happen. This raises a question on the credibility of this particular article. But this article, which I've come across, states that apparently the bomb that was used to kill him had been smuggled into the guest house about when was it?
5 months.
Some months ago. Now, how did they know he was going to stay there in the first place? I don't know if they're suggesting that Iran somehow or the other allowed this to happen, something along that line. But this is a report in the New York Times article. Of course, Israel has not publicly stated that they were behind this, and Blinken, the hypocrite Blinken, the one who promoted the idea of the babies being beheaded and all the atrocity propaganda, he stated United States had received no advance knowledge of the assassination plot. Quite fascinating in terms of that.
Yeah, you mentioned the Ukraine war. I think it's been nearly 900 days. I think
2022. That's since 2022, beginning of 2022. That's when it commenced, right?
Yeah. And I remember, Brother Yemi, anybody else living in the UK, I remember when the war or the conflict started, the media was on a rampage where we were trying to adopt Ukrainians to come to the country and let them live in your house for free, and the government will pay for it. All the football teams were wearing armbands for Ukraine, badges and logos all over the media, Brother Yemi. Do you remember that?
I remember.
And for Palestine, you cannot even, some countries or some locations, even in the UK, you can't have the Palestinian flag. You can't have the headscarf or anything. And the double standard.
But look at this racism, Brother Mohammed. Look at this racism. Share this hardcore racist conduct when dealing with Ukraine. Well, from the BBC. I mean, this is a BBC report. I think it's 24 seconds. Have a look at this.
I'm sorry. It's very emotional.
This hypocrisy. Here we are.
Emotional for me because I see European people with blue eyes and blonde hair being killed, children being killed every day with Putin's missiles and his helicopters and his rockets.
And so, of course, I understand and respect the emotion. What you are outlining there is this tension between longer-term efforts to apply pressure to Vladimir Putin, such as financial sanctions, and the very...
And he was not the only one who said it. European people with blue eyes and blonde hair being killed. I mean, many reporters were saying this. These are like us, our people. So, I mean, this shows and once again manifests this kind of inherent racism within the European dominant ruling class.
Yeah, but then as a Christian, this is what I'm trying to say. Brother YUSUF. Sorry, Goni. I mean, this is why I was saying regarding racism within the Bible. This is fundamentally within the Christian mindset. If you're going to start labeling people as the N-word from day one and have this mindset that we're superior than any other race, as the brother mentioned, from the Romans and so forth, and now to the Jewish race, and a lot of these people who have gone to Israel are not actually originally from that land anyway. They're all from Europe and other places. So it is sad to see.
And I mean, sorry to interrupt. It can be practically demonstrated because it's not just on the one level saying, "Oh, the Bible is racist," and you look at the story of the descendants of Ham and the descendants of Canaan. But from the South African point of view, it was Afrikaner Calvinism, because that's what it is, and the Dutch Reformed Church that, in fact, lay the ideological basis for the apartheid regime. So they would even in their sermons, and you look at some of the older sermons, if I can get these videos for you, where they would describe the blacks, even amongst white races today, as the descendants of Canaan. Cursed be Canaan, and a slave shall he be forever, and God shall bless Ham and enlarge his kingdom. So it's essentially racist ideology and the racism from the Bible. And may I add that the late Sheikh Ahmed Didat, when he was basically arguing against the Christian worldview, it was not just simply like these interfaith debates we have today, where every man and his dog debates nowadays, as you can see, but it served a particularly ideological purpose, because not only was he speaking out against the Bible, but in speaking out against the Bible, he was actually, in an indirect sense, challenging the apartheid regime. I mean, many times you had, for example, and this was in the early days in the 70s and the 80s, the intelligence community would, for example, pay him a visit. His talks would be monitored. And this was before social media and before the internet and all of this. This goes back to the 70s and 80s. He was assaulted and beaten up in Uitenhage. There was a famous case, if you go back and read his particular biography, and he faced a lot of threat. And it's quite ironical that, and strangely enough, that, and sad, I may add, that the ulama bodies in South Africa, like the Judicial Council and the Jamiat al-Ulama, never supported him. They never supported him. They didn't want to rock the boat, in a manner of speaking. Didn't want to challenge the establishment. And so his position that he adopted in the early days, and I can state this without any kind of shadow of a doubt, that him and many like him basically gave rise to the global dawah that we see in the world today. But his position was not popular during the height of apartheid. Many Muslims didn't support him because they saw him as being an affront against the state, although not directly, but at the very least indirectly, because he was challenging the ideological underpinnings of what sustained the apartheid regime. And many of the ulama fraternity also never supported him, which is tragic and indeed sad. When we talk about justice and standing up for justice and so on. Just a few points I just wanted to share with you on that issue.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Ahmed Deedat was a rare individual, and this is why he is remembered so well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of the signs that Allah gives us that He's pleased with one of His servants is that He has the people remember Him and love Him. This is one of the signs, and if with regards to the ulama that didn't back him, who remembers their names today?
No one.
No one. And this is the thing, and this is what happens to the strangers of this world. And the strangers are the ones that are remembered, and they are the ones that are famous in the heavens and unknown in this world, right? Like this is the honor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them, and this is just why we should never be apologetic. We should always be unapologetic, and we should always put our in complete trust in Allah. If you are the only person speaking against the falsehood, right? Remember, da'wah is the profession of the prophets, alayhum salatu salam, right? And they started off as one person in their respective communities, but Allah honored them above all of mankind. You are taking on that responsibility. So never be afraid to be the only one. At the end of the day, when Allah is your ally, let them take your jobs away from you. Let them take your sustenance away from you. Let them take everything. Take your kids, your wealth, your wives, your mothers, your fathers. Let them take that all away from you. You will get far more in return from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And your parents and your kids, they're going to die one day anyway. Having them die as martyrs, right, is an amazing thing. Learn from the people in Palestine and in Uyghur, right? Let's not forget the brothers and sisters in Uyghur, in India, right? In Yemen, those who are oppressed beyond anything we can imagine. And yet they stand true. They will not budge. And when they see someone die next to them, they are happy for them, because they're like, I'll meet him soon in Jannah. This is now my brother in Jannah. There is nothing better, and there is nothing that can defeat you if you have this mentality. And of course, you don't want to be in that situation, but prepare yourself for it. It's gonna come. We already in the end times where Rasulullah already told us that it's our love for the dunya that will make us weak. Love Allah and His Messenger, that will make you strong. And you'll be able to hold this hot coal, which is Islam. You'll be able to hold it, and it will not burn you. I mean, we emphasize this. I mean, our job as du'at is not just to spread the message of Islam to non-Muslims, but it's to remind the Muslims to stand fast on your deen, to learn it, so that the influence of the non-Muslims does not affect you, that the shubahat and the attack and the aggression doesn't weaken you. We're asking you to guard yourselves, right? Defend yourselves by strengthening your own iman, and that comes through the knowledge. So don't fear anyone, inshallah, right? Don't think to yourself, oh, I might lose my job, right? Each one of us here has a career, has family to feed, has parents that we love, right? So I'm sure the brothers, I know Brother Mohammed has children, but I'm sure YUSUF has children as well. They think about them, right? But this is Islam. There is nothing more important than Allah and His Messenger. And we sacrifice everything for Allah, right? We sacrifice absolutely everything. And this is what they can never defeat, because our life, our prison is the dunya. Our home is the akhirah. So when you kill someone, when you kill a Muslim, you are freeing him from his prison. And they cannot stand that because all they have is this dunya. And this is why they are never pleased. Because they understand this dunya is their home, and the only place they're going to go is prison, Jahannam.
Yeah,
No,
indeed.
well said.
And the chap called Free Palestine, he's made a abusive comment. I just want to address one thing. The Jews aren't killing any kids. They only poison your swear word, swear word, swear word, swear word, swear word, Prophet Muhammad. Let me just share something. You call yourself Free Palestine. Again, another coward.
It's the same guy. It's the same guy. He just changes his name.
Same guy changing names. I just want to, between 20, you're saying they're not killing children. Okay, look at the FAIR reports, your own standards. Human Rights Watch declares that between 2021 and 2023, 200 Palestinian children were killed at the hands of Israeli forces and settlers. 2022, that's before October 7th, was viewed as the deadliest year for Palestinian children in the West Bank in 15 years, meaning 15 years before it, that was viewed as the deadliest year for Palestinian children in the past 15 years. Then in the Great War of Return, the Great March of Return, I said Great War of Return, Great March of Return in 2019, when there was this peaceful marching, Israeli snow soldiers and Israeli snipers were shooting dead Palestinian children, disabled people in wheelchairs, women, journalists, and children walking in a peace march. The United Nations, and this is all, these are not Muslim bodies. That's why I'm quoting these for your own enlightenment. The United Nations Officer for the Coordination for Humanitarian Affairs verified that out of the 200 children that were killed, it could be shown that 36 of them were shot dead in cold blood, meaning there's no justification or excuse to say, look, we are targeting a militant or we targeting a potential terrorist in relation to that. Nothing on that particular line. They were shot dead in cold blood. Not one of them, not one of the soldiers has been basically shown to book. And this range of facts is significant in the sense that it demonstrates the idea that killing, murder, bloodlust, rape as a weapon of war is part and parcel of what makes up Israel. In other words, without that, without these factors, you cannot sustain it. You cannot sustain the state of Israel. Israeli state, the birth of the Israeli state is born by ethnic cleansing and mass murder. It sustained itself through ethnic cleansing and mass murder and massacre. And to survive, it needs to survive through engaging in ethnic cleansing and mass murder. So what's significant is, in all of this that I'm pointing out, is that it nullifies this rotten Israeli claim by the apologists that all its attacks on Gaza post-October 7th is due to the principle of self-defense. It's totally nullified. You can't raise that argument. The fact that Palestinian children at 12 years old, 10 years old, are deprived of the habeas corpus rights, that's essentially hostages. No national or any kind of observatory actor has observed the bare minimum moral duty of condemning these as blatant human rights violations. Because if you are basically saying that we need to condemn what is happening on October 7th, what happened on October 6th? All the leading political powers and groups of the world, your British government being one of them, the United States government being another, European countries, the European Union, all of them are culpable for deliberately veiling these human rights violations for numerous years. So when we talk about human rights and even the applicability of certain standards, even by your own definition, you fail. You talk about this position of democracy, your own principles, you fail and you fall on your own particular sword. So it's quite shocking to find that only in October 2023 did you have this bloody audacity and the so-called collective impetus where you are now asking people to speak out against Palestinians. And I'm sorry, but that kind of double standard and that ideological bias on your point doesn't hold any justification any longer, because you are totally damned in history. And for the very first time in human history, in the future, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, 100 years from now, when people remember Israel, they will remember the fact that it's been tainted by the charge of genocide, which is the greatest crime out of all criminal acts. Israel, amongst all the rogue nations of the world in the 21st century, will be remembered as a state that is associated with genocide. It's one thing my government did, which I will applaud them for. Many authoritative international legal bodies and NGOs that are concerned with the rights of violations have pointed out that Israel has for decades been continuously violating these particular rights in its treatment of Palestinian children. But not only Palestinians, even your own Jews, black Jews, Ethiopian Jews, are right at the bottom of the ladder because they are black. They're at the bottom of the ladder. Some years back, there was this talk about implementing birth control methods. Why would you want to implement birth control methods for black Jews? Why is it that when blacks marry whites or white Jews, these blacks are ostracized, and those white women, white Jewish Ashkenazi Jews, are basically lambasted and attacked, and violence being committed against them by their fellow white Jews? This goes to show that this is a racist regime, a racist nation, and all you can do is swear us. All you can do is abuse us. These are how the whites behaved in the past. The whites in South Africa did the same thing. They were not as bad as Israel. They were not as worst as Israel, but they did the same thing. This is the behavior. Once we show you the truth, once we show you your falsehood, once we expose that your worldview is fundamentally and utterly rotten to the core, your mind goes berserk. So you've got no response. The only response you can do is use a four-letter word, abuse us, and be a coward. Be a coward that you can't have the moral proclivity and the strength that we're not even in front of you. We're not even face to face with you, but you can't even put your face on a computer screen. That's how cowardly and shameless you are as a human being. Disgraceful.
I also want to say that these people, we had some of these comments, they were talking about slavery.
And there's no one there, Brother Mohammed.
Yeah, no one's going to be there. Let's be honest. They are slaves. The thing is, these people, they are slaves. And they are the slaves of Allah. Unwilling slaves of Allah. And everything that they do is for the cause of Islam. And they don't intend it. You know, so for example, the same comment that you were reading out, the Jews aren't killing any kids, they only poisoned your many swear words, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Even this comment, Rasul ﷺ survived and completed his mission and spread Islam to the four corners of the world. That's what you're telling me, mate. That's what you are reminding me. That the Jew who poisoned Rasul ﷺ failed spectacularly. And it was Rasul ﷺ, the illiterate man in the 7th century desert, who came out on top and spread Islam to the four corners of the world. Right? Today, every single Muslim knows about Islam because of him. You know, his name is the most common name that people name their sons after. It is the most popular name in the world. Right? I mean, what do you think you're doing? All you do is help us. When you lie about Islam, you help us. Because then when those you lie to do a little bit of research, they're like, why do they need to lie about Islam? You do the work for us. And when Allah sees us weak, sees the ummah weak, he uses the strength of the disbelievers against them to enforce and spread Islam further. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took it upon himself to preserve the deen, preserve the Quran and the Sunnah, right? Because it is the completion of his religion. And it's the perfection of his religion. And it is the last of the revelation. So he put it upon himself to preserve it and to have it spread. And when the Muslims are weak to spread it, he uses you, the unwilling slaves that he has created to spread Islam for us. So thank you.
Yeah. I just want to respond to something, Mohammed. This chap, this character that was on our program the last time, he just sent me a WhatsApp. I've invited him to this platform, but he hasn't come. But he's asking me whether, I mean, and we've discussed this at length, what do I say about the fact that Hamas kills civilians and children? Now, I did open something. I want to address this, and people, I don't know if you've seen these videos, Brother Yemeni, with Zaka, that the story, please, brothers, the story of executed children is false. It is fake news. Let me share something with you, and I want to show the fake news even on the video, that the person sharing it was exposed as a liar on the channel. Here's it here. This is an excellent website. If you can share this, brother, Israeli Story. This is a phenomenal website by Jewish individuals and, of course, Brother Ali Abu Nima from the United States doing investigative journalism, the Electronic Intifada. But they extracted a clip, the Israeli Story, from the founder of the individual, Zaka, which we discussed. Now, I'm surprised people don't see it. This is the Zaka is an organization, a Jewish organization, ultra-Orthodox Jewish organization. When people die or someone is killed or something, they collect the parts and so on and so forth, and then they recount and give eyewitness testimony in terms of what they see and what they heard and so on. And they were fundamental in spreading the mass rape, the mass rape stories that we got later. But the beheaded baby stories that you saw in the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Guardian, and all of that comes from this scumbag. I want you to see this, and I want the brother, if you're watching this, come on the program, but watch this because we played this. It's just about 2 minutes. I want you to see this. Brother Mohammed, if this is played, have a look at this and listen to this. This is an excerpt from the October 7th document. Play the whole thing.
2 days later, the regional head of Zaka, a voluntary organization charged with collecting bodies, gives a different account to Sky News of what happened at the same house.
And you're talking children, to piles of 10 children each.
Listen to the lies. Listen to the lies.
Tied to the back, burned to death. This is
lies.
This is something behind. This is next level. And
I mean, it's actually indescribable. It's indescribable.
It's indescribable, and I won't describe everything that I saw.
This account is repeated by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in a conversation with President Biden.
They took dozens of children, bound them up, burned them, and executed them.
The list of the dead shows 2 12-year-old twins are killed when police and army stormed the house in Be'eri. But there are no other children.
There was an interview you did with Sky Television.
Watch this liar on the interview. Watch his eyes and see how he scored out.
From Britain. 2 piles, we found them in Be'eri. 2 piles of 10 children each were tied back to back and burned to death. Now, again, I mean, if we look at the death figures at Be'eri, there are only 10 children that died at Be'eri.
Well, not children, it's 18-year-old. So
now he changes it. No longer children, 18 years old.
We're all together. When you look at them and they're burned, you don't know exactly the ages. So you're talking about 18-year-old, 20 years old, and you just don't look on the spot identification to see the ages or something like that.
It is not the only questionable story that Yossi Landau tells about Kibbutz Be'eri.
We go further. Then we see a woman. She was lying on the floor, a puddle of blood, big puddle of blood. She was a pregnant woman. Her stomach was butchered open.
Lies.
The baby that was connected to the cord was stabbed, and she was shot in the back.
Kibbutz Be'eri has denied this account.
The story of the pregnant woman reported by Zaka is not relevant to Be'eri.
Yossi Landau insists he witnessed this scene at Be'eri.
If you want to see the picture, I have the picture of it.
Are you able to share the photographic evidence with us?
To show you. Yes.
Now watch what happens.
Where's my phone? Oh, I'm sorry. I will not put it in front of the camera.
No, that's fine. I'll come and look.
This is the knife they used.
Shot and killed, but
Over here was the wooden.
But that's the imagery after the bodies had been cleared away. Oh.
Yes. This is the baby. This is it.
I'm sorry to be graphic here, but I can't see a baby here.
You can't see the baby but this is the picture of the mother. Okay. For sure, you know, we didn't think when we over there, we didn't think to camera everything. We didn't have
thing to camera everything, but you took pictures of bodies and you're saying you can't show a dead baby in the body that you claim you saw.
that. This wasn't in our.
Look at him.
The photo shows an unidentifiable piece of charred flesh. The list of the dead contains no victim that fits Yossi Landau's description. On October 7th, 2 babies die. One is killed when a bullet is fired through a door. The other dies following an emergency cesarean after the mother is shot. Neither is burned or beheaded.
You being someone who, with your own hands, with your own eyes, with your nose, you smelled this, what would you say to that person who is downplaying what took place here?
I wouldn't say anything. I would ask, please give me. He should be together with the Hamas terrorist, and he should be killed because he's a part of it.
Visiting celebrities continue to be shown babies' cribs, and the world continues to be told stories about murdered babies.
When you're taking babies, cutting them and tying them together and burning them to death, you're treating them less than an animal.
1,300 people dead, murdered, babies.
These bastards put these babies in an oven and put on the oven. We found the kid a few hours later.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken describes the fate of 2 small children.
Family of 4, a young boy and girl, 6 and 8 years old, and their parents around the breakfast table. The father has eye gouged out in front of his kids. The mother's breast cut off. The girl's foot amputated. The boy's fingers cut off before they were executed. And then their executioners sat down and had a meal. That's what this society is dealing with.
This story also comes from Yossi Landau and Zaka. An analysis of the evidence suggests that it is also untrue. Of the 782 unarmed victims of October 7, 36 are children, 13 under the age of 12. None died in the circumstances described by Antony Blinken.
So, I mean, the point is, are you a sick, sadistic bastard to have such a appalling imagination that comes out from a horror movie, that you want to talk and think about the worst vile things? You know, there are these I don't recommend people watching it. I've heard of it, these shock horror movies where you're cutting people up and toasting them alive. I mean, your imagination is so sick, so sadistic, so obscene that you want to think up all of this and basically spread it to the world. The reason you do that is that you numb the senses of the individuals, that when you commit genocide, then basically you can justify, well, look, these people cut off babies from pregnant women. They took babies, they put them in microwave ovens. I mean, who is sick in the head to think and make up such a thing? And I just want to leave you with one point before I go to the other brothers here. This we discussed this and this brother, if you are listening, you are free to come on this program. Don't just send me WhatsApp messages. Come on this program now, and I want to share something with you. This is an organization called Zaka. I want people to see what Zaka is. I want to share this last page here, Brother Mohammed. And then I'm going to.
We've still got people. We got Hindsight, who's a Christian, and she's always on the show.
Let me show what this organization is about. Just share this, or let them see this. Let them see how sick and satanic. Zaka is the organization. This is the organization, it's on the screen, brother, that is a a voluntary community emergency response team in Israel operating in a police district. They're recognized by the Israeli government. Zaka, Identification, Extraction, Rescue, True Kindness. They came up. Zaka faced insolvency before. They faced insolvency before October 7th. Given the job of retrieving the dead bodies after October 7th, they started fundraising. By 31 January, they had raised over 50 million shekels at $13.7 million. I don't know how many pounds that is. But what they did, they were the source of every single major journalist out there. They were the main source of suggesting that there were dead babies, there were beheaded babies, the people were killed, there was mass rape. But I want to point this out to you guys. The founder of Zaka, Yossi Landau, is running Zaka. But the founder of Zaka, the history of Zaka, people don't know. He's an individual, and we discussed this before. He's a chap called Yehuda Meshi Zahav. Zaka's co-founder and main figurehead for more than 30 years, was awarded the Israel Prize in 2021. This bastard had multiple accusations surfaced of having committed sexual assaults against women, girls, and boys over several decades with the knowledge of others in the community. Channel 13 reported that Zaka officials had known about the abuse allegations, meaning that scumbag that you saw on Al Jazeera, Yossi Landau, knows full well that his boss and founder was a pedophile, a known pedophile, and they worked to silence the claims. Meshi Zahav subsequently resigned from Zaka leadership and relinquished the Israel Peace Prize. But this is a guy here. This is a guy that is behind it. This guy here founded Zaka. And this organization called Zaka was facing insolvency, as you could quite clearly see. And then after October 7th, they managed to raise funds of 50 million shekels. That's equivalent to 13.7 million US dollars. And they are the ones behind the spreading of the mass rape atrocity that Hamas engaged in mass rape, and that Hamas beheaded babies, and that Hamas put babies in ovens and cut off the fingers. And then you've got, from this degraded and discredited organization, people like Blinken and your Foreign Secretary Lamy, and even reputable news outlets like The Guardian and the Daily Mirror and the Washington Post and the New York Times all spread this kind of atrocity propaganda. What's going on here? You can make a damn movie about the whole thing. And then you've got people that are still now, brother, if you want to come, stop sending me messages, come on this platform now so we can expose and teach you. Stop sending me WhatsApp messages. Come here and see the facts. These are the facts. I mean, I could write an entire novel about what's going on. These are the lies that you are going to believe. And what is ironical, what is strange is that, you know, if we were to do this, us, you and me, we were to lie and spread false information, what would happen to us? I mean, YouTube would probably, when we were speaking about the vaccinations, I don't want to raise that now, during the COVID period and a lot of issues that was happening in the lockdown in South Africa, our channels were removed. There was a channel I was doing a podcast for, Loving Life TV, channel was totally removed. And we were presenting factual scenarios in terms of what was happening on the ground level. YouTube removed us. When these organizations spread this kind of fake atrocity propaganda, has anyone after 9 months come out and said, look, they are wrong? Has Anthony Blinken apologized? Has that scoundrel scumbag Douglas Murray from the Henry Jackson Society, has he apologized? Has any of the mainstream journalists on BBC or on CNN that initially presented this fake atrocity propaganda, have they apologized? Has Piers Morgan apologized? You know, he's now talking about, oh, I'm questioning the proportionality of the Israeli response. Has he apologized? Has anybody apologized? None of them have. None of them have. They've got no credibility. They've got no reputation. The Quran describes these individuals as aktharumul fasiqun. These are perverted transgressors. Not just metaphorically or symbolically, but literally the perverted transgressors. These are pedophiles. You've got a pedophile founding an organization, and this pedophilic-led organization is spreading mass rape atrocity propaganda against Hamas, and that's a source for global news media. I mean, this is an insane world that you're living in. You can't make this up. Really. Please, brothers, look at the facts. Study. Go out there. It's all available online.
The thing is, these people that come up with these horrific scenarios of what Hamas has done, what they were actually doing is fantasizing about what they want to do.
Yeah.
That's what's going on. So whenever you hear these people talk about cutting off limbs and gouging eyes and all of this stuff, it is because that's what they want to do. But they know they can't do it because they have to sort of tiptoe the line between being able to do whatever they want before they condemn, before the script is flipped and it goes against them. They want to do as much as possible, as much sadistic evil that they can, and saying, okay, well, we've done it just about enough not to get criticized for it because we've already brainwashed everyone. But of course, that didn't work on October the 7th. October the 7th is the day that the script has been flipped.
Just have a look at this guy here who's a stop screen. I want to share this last, and I don't want to give too many things, but I just want to share this. This is the guy, Brother Mohammed. I think we may have discussed him. Ras Cohen, again from the Electronic Intifada. This was a phenomenal piece. I urge you to go to this website. New York Times. You see, there was an article in the New York Times by Jeffrey Gettleman where they were trying to justify this mass rape propaganda atrocity.
Sorry,
Yeah.
just quickly. With this article, can we post it in the chat?
Yeah,
so that
indeed.
can...
Let me see if I can. If Brother Muhammad can. I'm just going to try and copy the. Let me just copy the. And please, brother, stop WhatsApping me and disturbing me. I can't seem to post it on the.
Oh, sorry, that's my bad. That's me. Sorry.
In the private chat. So, yeah. There's a recording in it, but I want to show you something which is remarkable here. They discuss this. So just quickly, right? Jeffrey Gettleman did an article in the New York Times, and the individual that he hired to do an article, this is a guy, Jeffrey Gettleman. He wrote an article, and you can check the article, "Screams Without Violence: How Hamas Weaponized Sexual Violence." Now, the person that he did the article with was a lady called Annette Schwartz. Annette Schwartz is what they call they call a not a fully fledged journalist, but someone that's an associate, that's just a trainee journalist. But on her social media forum, she was liking posts and comments by Yoav Gallant and Netanyahu when they spoke about Amalek and so on. That's a by the way kind of thing. But they interviewed a lady called Gal Abdush for this particular segment. But the lady called Gal Abdush, that was a symbolic of the horrors of that particular rape that took place. Abdush's family repudiated that particular claim, and they stated that there's no evidence that she was raped. And they further state that they were manipulated by the New York Times and had no idea that the newspaper was going to use their loved one to further the rape narrative, despite the lack of any evidence that it occurred. This is the article in the Mondevoice, and I'll give you the information later. I don't know if it's being shown on your screen, but this is the Mondevoice article, where on the Mondevoice article, the family of the key case in the New York Times October 7th sexual violence. You see, they spoke about mass rape, but to justify the mass rape, they gave only one example, Gal Abdush, to say, look, this is an example that there was mass rape that took place. But the family of Gal Abdush repudiated the claims that, in fact, she was raped by any means. In fact, her own partner says, no, she was shot, but there was no rape that took place. What is more remarkable? What is more remarkable, if you go down this particular article, there's this guy here called Ras Cohen, the Israeli eyewitness who keeps changing his story. And here is a picture which was captured by him. This is his Twitter feed. And this picture, which is captured by him, is said to have occurred after he witnessed mass rapes. Ras Cohen and SHUAIB are two of the four eyewitnesses from the New York Times article who claimed to have witnessed rapes during Nova Festival. On October 7th, sorry, there's the Twitter feed, if it can open up here. Here we are. On October 7th, Ras posted a smiling selfie while lying in a steam bed with SHUAIB, where they claim to have witnessed rape. Now you tell me, does this guy look like he has seen rape? Look at his picture. Does he look? He posts this article. This is where do these guys are people thinking they are eyewitnesses that the New York Times used as one of the key eyewitnesses to have witnessed rape, because there's no one else. This is a picture taken of Ras Cohen in his Twitter feed that he posts after, obviously, the shooting and after they claim to have seen rape. The guy smiling for the camera. He's seen mass rape, and the scumbag is smiling for the camera. And the very first time he speaks about rape is not October 7th, October 10th, October 12th. It's as late as November, the end of November, where he's interviewed and he's giving different contradictory accounts. Now, I cross-examine regularly witnesses in rape cases. And I mean, in the best of scenarios, it is difficult, especially when dealing with some of these tragic cases of children. But in this instance here, where the source of your atrocity propaganda has a founder that is a pedophile, the individual who eyewitnesses mass rape is now taking a selfie, giving a thumbs up to the camera, smiling. Does this guy look like he's traumatized? I mean, wake up, people. What is going on here? What on earth is going on here? And I mean, people are not seeing any of this. This is a fantastic article. This is a report. I don't know if you can hear this, but I'd like you to hear this, where a CIA agent, it's from a Twitter feed called Zay Squirrel, but they give a CIA agent called John Stockwell, where, you know, during the Cuban Missile Crisis and thereafter, he speaks about the fact that they pumped dozens of stories about Cuban atrocities, Cuban rapists. Listen to what he says. If you can hear this, just listen to this and see what this guy says on this particular point. Look at this. Listen to this guy here. If you can play it loud. Here we are. I hope you can hear.
No.
It's not playing yet.
It's not playing on your side. Let me just stop this, and I want to share the screen here. Hold on a second. Let me just go back and share the screen, and then I'll let me stop screen. Hold on a second. Let me just share screen here. Here we are. And I want you to hear what John Stockwell, as a CIA agent, states. Here we are. And I think if you can't hear it, then you can at least hear he says, we ran fake photographs that made every paper in the country. It was pure, raw, false propaganda to create the illusion of communists eating babies for breakfast. Listen to what he says. Here we are.
Names in the business to consciously introduce the stories into the press.
Well, give me a concrete example
of
how you use the press this way, how a false story is planted and how you got it published.
Well, for example, in my war, the Angola war that I helped to manage, 1/3 of my staff was propaganda. Ironically, it's called covert action inside the CIA. Outside, that means the violent part. I had propagandists all over the world, principally in London, Kinshasa, and Zambia. We would take stories which we would write and put them in the Zambia Times, and then pull them out and send them to a journalist on our payroll in Europe. But his cover story, you see, would be that he'd gotten them from his stringer in Lusaka, who had gotten them from the Zambia Times. We had the complicity of the government of Zambia, Kenneth Kaunda, if you will, to put these false stories into his newspapers. But after that point, the journalists, Reuters and AFP, the management was not witting of it. Now, our contact man in Europe was, and we pumped just dozens of stories about Cuban atrocities, Cuban rapists. In one case, we had the Cuban rapists caught and tried by the Ovimbundu maidens who had been their victims, and then we ran photographs that made almost every newspaper in the country of the Cubans being executed by the Ovimbundu women who supposedly had been their victims.
These were fake.
So can you see, look what he says, fake news.
Oh, absolutely. We didn't know of one single atrocity committed by the Cubans. It was pure, raw, false propaganda to create an illusion of communists, eating babies for breakfast and that sort of thing.
See what he says? It was raw, pure, raw, false propaganda to create the illusion of communists eating babies for breakfast. I mean, that's essentially what you've got here. You've got the very same thing, atrocity propaganda. The difference is, in this case, the people that are spreading the atrocity propaganda are themselves rapists and pedophiles. So, I mean, you couldn't make this up. You really couldn't make this up. It's like a big movie, you know, like a kind of a true, you know, representation of an Orwellian society before our eyes, and, you know, people being essentially hoodwinked and justifying genocide and killing of other real babies in real time based on the false atrocity propaganda. Thought I could just share that with you.
Jazakumullah khair, brother. Fantastic way to end the show, and I know it's quite sudden, but unfortunately we've hit the 3-hour mark. I know you're in a different time zone, being in South Africa, and I appreciate your time, your efforts. Hassan, Jazakumullah khair, brother, for joining into the show and to the stream, and of course our beloved brother Yemeni, Barakallah Feek, brother, for coming on. It's been fantastic having you on here. And brothers and sisters, I just want to remind you that we need to continue to share, like, and subscribe to the channels. Our brother YUSUF has got his own channel, so we need to support brother YUSUF. And I should have the banner here somewhere. The South African Debate Initiative. Sister, if you don't mind putting the link in the chat. And of course, brother Yemeni has his YouTube channel. So please continue to like and subscribe and share. And I do feel myself and brother YUSUF have been shadow banned by YouTube. You know, I'm not getting as much views how much I used to get in the past. So there's definitely something going on behind the scenes. So please, brothers and sisters, you know, subscribe to the channel, like and share. Jazakumullah khair. Final words to our brothers before we wrap it up. If you want to give your salutations, and then we can wrap the show up. Barakallah feekum.
Just, you know, as expected, when the Zionists, the Fanatics, and the Extremists are confronted by Muslims who understand what justice is, who are truly unapologetic and proud of their deen, and have iman and ally themselves with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they scatter, they disappear, they are nowhere to be seen. So let this be a reminder that you are always have the power. You have more power than anyone in the world when you ally yourself with Allah. No king, no oppressor, no one has any power over you. You are more powerful than them, and Allah has promised that the world, that the earth is inherited by the believers, not by the disbelievers, not by the oppressors. So do not fear anything. And take the example of the prophets, alayhimussalatu ajma'in, that when they were unapologetic and they preached Islam as it should be, they are the ones who were successful, not those who fought them. So that would be my closing statements. And of course, tomorrow night at 9:30, inshallah, British time, I've got episode 6 of Impregnable Islam. So share that, inshallah, with non-Muslims. Let them come and challenge Islam, where I will only speak about Islam, not about their Bible, and show them that the da'wah of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is what brought people to Islam. It wasn't because we brought down the Bible or any other scripture or any other ideologies, because Islam stood strong on its own and doesn't need anything else.
Yeah, mashallah. Jazakallah khair. YUSUF, Jazakumullah khair, brother. Brother Hassan, of course, once again, thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll be doing another stream sometime next week. So stay tuned, hit the notification. This is your brother Mohammed from CoverFef, and our guest speaker, of course, co-host, brother YUSUF ISMAIL from the South African Debate Initiative. Jazakumullah khair. And once again, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.